Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor's called the meeting to order. Mayor Roscoe,
Present.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes, here.
Councilmember Kaplan,
Here.
Councilmember Lunda is not with us this evening. Vice Mayor Sardinius.
Here.
Councilmember Stoner.
Here.
Councilmember Vasquez.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum.
Let's stand for the pledge. Nancy, will you lead us?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One second.
Invocation.
Yes. With us this evening is Pastor Yanis Tomasino with Key Biscayne Community Church.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us. Let's just bow our heads in prayer. Dear God, thank you for having this meeting today where we can discuss things that are important. For your governance is what allows us to come together as a community and to bring to attention the things that we need to discuss. That we ask that for your wisdom upon this meeting, that it may work for the benefit of all of Key Biscayne. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is brief comments by council.
I have a couple things to say. I just want to make two comments. First of all, one of our residents got up in a prior meeting and asked some questions about the repairs for the art in public places, and I just wanted to clarify that all the repairs were performed in strict coordination and compliance with instructions from the artist. So that puts that to bed. Another issue that I wanted to bring up is the crosswalks. I'm getting a lot of complaints, and I'm also observing myself as I walk around that motorists are running the crosswalks. It's really frightening. And it's clear that we need some police enforcement. It's hard to catch people doing that, I think. Staff is working on getting, they're working on the possibility of getting some additional safety features installed. We don't have any answer on that yet, but hopefully we can get that installed and in place. So in the meantime, I'm just asking for motorists to be more careful, not be texting, slow down, because especially in front of Winn-Dixie, people are just flying through. And the other thing I want to say is that the pedestrians need to take some responsibility for this. Before you step in the road as a pedestrian, you need to make sure that the motorists see you, make eye contact, and make sure they stop. We need to take care of each other, and that's how we'll do it, along with the help of the police. So thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Anybody else? If
I want
not,
to thank the Ass Club, right? It's a very nice event.
Yes,
And
indeed.
also my table mates for making me look good in the cookie contest. It's good to have a team. Thank you.
excellent.
Yeah,
We do.
ginger snaps.
All right, we'll move to public comments.
I actually do not have anyone signed up.
Holy smokes.
All right,
Wow.
here we go.
Next item is the agenda. Approval deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
I'd like to remove 9D.
I'll second the motion.
9D,
D,
D as in dog.
D as in dog.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, we're good with that, right? This was deferred from the LPA
Yep.
to here, and then it's being removed. Any other changes? Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item is a special presentation, a special recognition for It Takes a Village Family Fun Day.
Todd, can you come forward, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have the distinct honor of recognizing a truly remarkable community group. On March 16th, their flagship event, the annual Inclusive Family Fun Day welcomed more than 2,000 attendees this year, offering entertainment guides, local performances, and crucial access to disability resources, all in an environment of joy, connection, and inclusion. And with that, I'd like to welcome our community group. It Takes a Village to come on up.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yes. On behalf of It Takes a Village, this is Barbara, Carmen, and myself, Laura. We want to thank you for this recognition. We're deeply honored to be acknowledged for our Inclusive Family Day and for our ongoing services to the Key Biscayne community. Our mission has always been to uplift and support individuals with special needs and their families by fostering spaces of inclusion, learning, and meaningful connections. Events like this one are a powerful reminder of what's possible when a community comes together with passion, intention, and heart. What's happening here in Key Biscayne is not only inspiring, but also a shining example for other communities across Miami area to follow. Creating inclusive spaces isn't always easy. The easiest would have been to simply do nothing. But each of you has chosen to care and to make a difference. So thank you. Thank you for believing in our work, for standing beside us, and for helping us build a village where everyone is welcome and belongs. We look forward to continuing this journey with you and to serving this remarkable community together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I got to say that when we first brought the idea to Todd, he was like, you know, a deer in the headlights, and it's like, what do I have to do now? And now he's the biggest cheerleader. So it tells you that we've put together a really good program, and I thank all of you for supporting it. Okay, I'm gonna move the order around a little bit. Let's do, since we have guests here, Ray Baker, let's do that.
Key Biscayne Library update given by Miami-Dade County Public Library System Director Ray Baker.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Ray Baker, Director, Miami-Dade Public Library, and happy to be here tonight to provide an update on the new Key Biscayne Branch Library. If I can put my glasses on, I can probably make that a little bigger on the screen. And 1 second. There we go. So, and I know we have some new council members here since the last time I visited. So I'll have a couple of refresh slides just to give everybody a reminder of the things that we've been working on and what we're planning on building here to replace our existing library. So we'll be building a 20,000 square foot, 2-story library branch, essentially on the same location where we're currently located. So we'll be demolishing the existing library and replacing it with what you see on the screen there. And that is the northwest corner, abutting the pond and Crandon Boulevard, and essentially will be kind of the main entrance to the building. We're designing the building to achieve LEED Silver certification. A lot of the work that we've been doing on the site plan has involved not only preserving the pond, preserving the existing flora and fauna, but also improving it along the way. So I think it's going to be a beautiful site once we get to the end. And as we've gone through this process, we're also going to have EV chargers. We'll have 6 EV chargers is our plan for the site. As we've gone through the design process, we've taken into consideration sea level rise considerations. I believe we've built the building a little higher than we originally were planning on building it from the ground level. And we'll also be including a rooftop solar panel array as part of the LEED certification requirements. And this would be actually our 3rd solar paneled library by the time we get finished with it. Oh, there we go. Oh boy, that went way too far ahead. So some of the features of the building, right now, the two pictures that you see on the screen, one is the view of the pond from the first floor on the inside. That's the photo on the bottom. The photo on the top is one of the main reading rooms, looking towards the service desk where you can see a bit of the Art in Public Places installation that is going to be included into the project. But some of the larger project features that we'll be including in this building are U-Media Miami Technology Space. These are an area where you can do podcasting, learn how to play musical instruments, digital photography, and really having a place where we have mentor-led exposure to new technologies. The building will have two large multi-purpose meeting rooms so that we can have, any kind of community rooms, activities, programs, events with different groups and partners throughout the city and the village. Our second floor will be a family literacy area, an interactive storytelling area. One of the services we'll be providing is our homework help and tutoring services, where we provide free tutoring to residents using state certified teachers. We currently provide that at 27 of our locations, and we see about 1,500 kids every Saturday. So we're planning on continuing that here when the new branch is open. The new branch will, of course, feature a new collection of library materials, computers, Wi-Fi, printing, scanning, things that you would normally expect to see in most of our other branches. We'll also be adding a sensory-friendly room, individual study rooms. I mentioned the EV charging stations. We also incorporated the golf cart parking spaces. And as we start working on our programming and events for this branch, we're going to be working closely with the Village of Key Biscayne on making sure we're doing things that serve our residents widely throughout this village and throughout the county. Some of the things that we've completed since our last visit, we've gone through the Art in Public Places selection process. The artist Alexandra Fields O'Neill was selected through this process. You can see on the pictures here, this is going to be a mixed media installation along the elevator bank on the first floor, as well as a large project that will go between the first and second floor of the building on an area that is essentially the opening from the first floor to the second floor. So it's a really spectacular piece. These are some of the early renderings of what that's going to look like. So we're excited to have that process behind us, and as we get deeper into the construction of the building, we'll start working with the artist on fabricating this. So the big question everyone wants to know, what are our next steps? So first of all, I do want to thank the village manager, Katie Petros, Jeremy, Todd. They've been a great deal of help as we've been going through the permitting process. And we are, for all practical purposes, done with permitting with the village. We have a few things that we're working out with our water and sewer department and some easements. But we're ready to advertise, and we're planning on advertising for bids mid-June. So in the coming weeks, we'll be ready to put this on the street to hire a contractor. Also important to report that one of the things I've mentioned in the past is that we are planning on having a temporary location on Key Biscayne during the construction period. We have issued a letter of intent at Key Colony Plaza for a small space. We expect to have that lease finalized in the coming weeks as well. So we will have a small home to serve as a service point while we're building the building. In July, we anticipate having bids and awarding the contract in September. And the goal will be to start site work, demolition, and construction in November. And we're in May 2025 now. Our goal is to be done with the building by May 2027.
Okay.
And that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions to Mr. Baker?
Pretty exciting after all of this time.
We've been at it a while. Yeah.
Progress. I didn't hear this particular element. There was a thought about being able to hang some historical and archival materials somewhere within the large area, I think on the first floor.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We've been working with Katie Petros and the Key Biscayne Historical Society? Yes. On incorporating some of their artwork or some of their pieces into one of the multi-purpose rooms in the building.
That's great.
So thank you for reminding me.
Quick question.
And having heard It Takes a Village, is there room for activities there for groups like that?
Yeah, one of the things we'll be incorporating into this building is a sensory-friendly room. I think actually the new Doral Library will open before this one, so that will be our first.
Why?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding.
So when this will be our second one. So we will have a sensory-friendly room, and many of you might not know, we're certified by the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities as a library, autism-friendly library.
Okay.
And we certainly plan on having plenty of inclusive programming at our branches.
Ladies, this is your next target right there.
You mentioned something about a music room, or
Our
can you elaborate a
U-Media
little bit?
space,
Yeah.
the U-Media spaces have a combination of digital technology, musical instruments, podcasting, digital photography, and those will all be available in our U-Media room. So there'll be opportunities for music lessons, learning how to play keyboard, learning how to play guitar. It'll have a sound booth as well, where people can come in and record a podcast or record music.
I wonder if there was, and I'm sure you're pretty well advanced on this, but is there an opportunity to create a space for performances, make it a cultural center as well? Small performances, but a place where people can gather, and you got a lot of kids here that study music, and great opportunity for them to perform.
So we'll have two relatively large multi-purpose rooms, which in most of our branches where we have a large multi-purpose room, the type of programming runs the gamut from musical performances to other kinds of activities. So it wouldn't be a stage, so to speak, but it is somewhere where you could have a musical performance.
If I could just add on that, Mr. Baker. So, council members, so we have Todd and Katie working the programming with that, and also they're trying to integrate it with the community center so that we can have cross-programming.
Okay,
so
great.
in some cases, it may actually take folks out of the community center and maybe open up some, because we've got the island room, which is quite large. So yeah, we're all taking that in consideration. If you have certain ideas that you want them to consider.
I'd love to. I mean, I don't want to get in the middle of a design that's advanced or anything like that,
No,
but I'd love to be able to.
We're taking it seriously about the programming, and they're working very closely with Katie.
I would
on it.
love to be able to
Yeah.
put in my 2 cents on that if at
Please do.
all possible. It'd be great to have an opportunity to create a space for, cultural space, performance and music.
Absolutely. Love to talk to you more about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
All right, let's do that. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ray. And thank you, Katie.
Do we have Athalie Edwards here? Come on down.
Fernando, one result of this will surely be that more people will hear you play the keyboard.
No, don't say that.
I didn't want to go there. I was wondering why.
I know, I exposed.
The next item, the historic Virginia Key Beach Park presentation, given by Executive Director Athalie Edwards.
While he's loading that, I'll just make the quick introduction.
Go ahead, please.
Tonight, we're pleased to welcome Athalie Edwards, Executive Director of the Virginia Key Beach Park Trust, and Connor Green, Special Events Manager for the park. As neighbors and partners, the Village of Key Biscayne has been working closely and collaboratively with Athalie and Connor on a multitude of issues. So, and we got their presentation.
Still downloading.
Good. What are they, you got it?
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Commission, Town Manager, Clerk. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Athalie Edwards, the Executive Director and CEO of Historic Virginia Key Beach Park. This is Connor Green, our event manager. And many in Key Biscayne do not know about our park, so I'd like to share who we are, our history, and the role that we play in preserving our history and nature.
Yeah.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
better
there you
now?
go. There
My
you
voice,
go.
my voice
All
is so
right.
soft. Let me see if I can. There we go. Thank you, Connor. Historic Virginia Key Beach Park is an 82.5-acre park located across Bear Cut Bridge on Virginia Key Beach Drive. It's a home of a natural beach in the city of Miami, which is something we are proud of and like to share. Beyond the beach, we have a diverse habitat, which includes a tropical hardwood hammocks, mangrove wetlands, coastal dunes, and seagrass beds. This makes the park a vital environmental source. We're also proud to be listed as the U.S. Park Service National Registry of Historic Park Places, recognizing the park's role in civil rights history. Today, the park is gathering place for a whole community, including some of the Key Biscayne residents. We host everything from weddings, birthday parties, sport league events, summer camps, and special events. And as you can see on the aerial picture here, we're just across from Bear Cut Bridge that I stated earlier. Our park offers a range of amenities. We offer beachfront cabins, open air pavilions that can be rented out for daytime uses, paddleboard rentals courtesy of Paddle, and guided horseback tours that go through the park and shoreline. Our education department offers eco-history tours and explain natural and cultural significance of the park. These two structures that you see here are the bathhouse and concession stand, which were both built in 1952. They are still in use today and serving as a link to the park's early days and community as it was built to serve. Built around the same time, you have the historic carousel and the mini train, served for generations of visitors. The carousel runs on weekends from 12 to 4, but is currently under repair for minor repairs, and the train is under major restoration, and we're actively raising funds to bring it back to life. In 1986, Black men were made up of a third of a vote to incorporate the city of Miami, but they weren't allowed on the beaches. This would change 49 years later. In May of 1945, a group of Black men held a peaceful wait-in at Haulover Beach, demanding access to a public shoreline. The protest led the creation of Virginia Key Beach, which opened in August 1st of 1945. It was only accessible by boat for 2 years until the Rickenbacker Causeway opened in 1947. It remained a colored-only beach until the Civil Rights Act in 1964. In 1979, Miami-Dade County transferred ownership to the park to the city of Miami. It closed for the public for 3 years until 1982. In response to a potential development, community leaders formed a trust in 2000 to preserve the land and its history. The park officially reopened in 2008. And here's a picture of some of the same community leaders of the park's reopening in 2008. Now we get to the good stuff, the museum. This August 1st, on the park's 80th birthday, we're officially commencing the development of Virginia Key Beach Museum. We're finalizing the agreement now, and construction will go to bid on the first round of funds, when the first round of funds will be released. The museum will honor both the civil rights legacy and environmental significance to the park. Virginia Key Beach Park Trust is responsible for managing the park and preserving the history. While we work in partnership with the City of Miami, the park is not fully funded through them. We rely on revenue from pavilion rentals, beach entrance fees, and special events. Those funds go directly into the maintenance and restoring the history of the historic structures. And now I'd like to introduce Connor, our events manager, to talk about special events.
Thank you, Athley. My name is, let me switch the slide. My name is Connor Green, and I serve as the special event manager at Historic Virginia Key Beach Park. I oversee all permitted events at the park, from initial inquiries and permitting, logistics, staffing, and post-event wrap-ups. It's my role to ensure that our events are safe for all attendees and respect the history and ecology of the park. Special events play a huge role in keeping the park operational, generating around 50% of our revenue. We host around 15 to 20 permitted events each year, the bulk of these being low-impact events. We understand the importance of collaboration, which is why Athley and I have put extra focus into working closely with the City of Miami, Miami-Dade County, and the Village of Key Biscayne. We've been working with several members of the Key Biscayne administration to improve communication. I also coordinate directly with residents on the north side of Commodore Club West to conduct sound checks before events. This is the closest building
Right.
to the park. This helps us ensure music levels remain respectful and non-disruptive, and recently we've been seeing that it has been working. We hold pre- and post-event discussions with all jurisdictions to address concerns and improve processes. I look forward to continuing dialogue and partnership as we work to preserve the park's legacy and keep it thriving for generations to come. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out. Mr. Manager, you've been working with them to try to obviously mitigate any issues that we have. But your events are mostly on Saturday, Sunday, or are they all throughout the week?
It's usually Saturdays and Sundays, and we'll give sometimes 2 weeks advance notice so that the message can be out there. Yeah, but primarily on weekends.
And the amount of the groups that gather, are the number of the groups that gather?
I also send out the permitted attendee number.
But is it in what range? Are they a couple hundred?
It's anywhere from a couple hundred to a few thousand. Yeah, they're all different. Every single event is unique. Yeah.
Okay.
Been to Loveburn, that's unique,
It is unique. Yes.
but it was nicely self-contained.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been working hard with them. Yeah.
No perceptible impacts that I could discern. So
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming by. We appreciate your being here.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you.
and Commission. Appreciate it.
The next item is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week.
Let me do, is anybody here from the choral? Yeah. Andre? Yeah, all right. Let's all go down here so we can.
This one. Recognizing Choral Appreciation Day.
See you again. Some of us were at the exhibit, what was it, a couple of Fridays ago?
Yeah.
And these young folks here from Mass are doing a tremendous job in creating awareness for our coral reef. So we're very proud to be able to present this proclamation on behalf of my colleagues and I, and the Village of Key Biscayne. And let me just read a couple of parts here. Coral reefs are vital marine ecosystems that support an extraordinary diversity of life, including countless species of fish, invertebrates, and algae. And whereas coral reefs serve as natural barriers protecting coastlines from storm surges and erosion, thereby safeguarding communities and infrastructure, whereas coral reefs face escalating threats from climate change, pollution, and unsustainable fishing practices, endangering their survival and the services they provide. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, affirms the critical importance of coral reef ecosystems and encourages all residents and visitors to engage in their protection and restoration. That the village supports responsible tourism, improved waste management, and active conservation to ensure coral reefs thrive for generations to come. And thank you very much again for your participation. And you want to say a few words about your work?
Absolutely.
Of course, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Rasco, and the Village Council for your support of not only our event, but of our advocacy and our mission. Students for Coral Preservation is a youth-led organization dedicated to advocating for the support and protection of our coral reefs in Miami and across the world. And I would like to say, like, my deepest appreciation is this not only legitimizes what we do, you know, as just only a group of students doing this, having an official proclamation, but also just hearing it is very helpful, and it helps in a way that I cannot describe, and I'm incredibly grateful for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is a proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week.
Where is Mr. Miranda?
Unfortunately, on Public Works Week, he's out sick. So he's either celebrating at home and not
All
telling me,
right.
or he is truly sick.
He owes me big time.
Chris.
All right.
He's celebrating though.
Oh, his staff's here, yeah. But we got the most important people, our staff. So back there hiding out in the corner
Mr.
doing
Mayor.
their thing.
Come up. Come on, man.
Come on up.
Come up, guys.
Come on up, guys and gals.
You're here.
Shall we make another trip down?
I guess so.
Yep. Let's go. Let's do it again. Another picture.
Oh, make sure you get that.
How you
guys doing? Sir. All right.
Guys.
All right. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, the high quality of life, and the well-being of the people of the village of Key Biscayne. Whereas the men and women of the Public Works Department in the village of Key Biscayne are committed to delivering these services with professionalism and pride, often behind the scenes and in all conditions, thereby playing a critical role in protecting our community's health, safety, and quality of life. And whereas the year 2025 marks the 65th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, with the theme, People, Purpose, and Presence, recognizing the essential role that public works plays in connecting communities and supporting day-to-day life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Joe Rasco, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to the 24th as National Public Works Week in the village of Key Biscayne, and urge all our citizens to recognize the hard work and commitment of our public works professionals to participate in activities, events, and observances that honor their services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a site plan review workshop for Terra Group entry block.
Since you've already bought in, we put you where we put you here in order because you're part of the family now. So. Chad, before he goes on, you want to tell them what we're doing here so that the public knows what's going on?
Good evening. This was a process that the Village Council adopted a couple months ago, which now requires for developers that have a site plan to come before the council, prevent in a workshop setting a proposed site plan to allow the council to give feedback and allow the public to get an opportunity to see the proposal before it proceeds to a final vote at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Good evening. Ian DeMello with the Shubin Law Group, 100 Southeast 2nd Street. On behalf of the applicant, Environmental Resilient Communities, LLC. We're joined this evening by the Terra Development Group, led by David Martin and Andrea Dominguez. Also our architect, Ayman Mansour with ODP, our engineer, Hernando Navas, Leshevsky Shishkin, and our landscape architect, Jeff Suter with EDSA. As was mentioned, we're here before you on a workshop related to a site plan application for the properties located at 1222 and 24 Crandon Boulevard. As you know, the property is currently vacant. It sits at the entry to the village on the west side of Crandon Boulevard, and it's commonly referred to as the entry block. The applicant proposes activating this gateway property with a site plan that's going to include a 5,000 square foot commercial office space, as well as a padel facility that'll have 3 indoor padel courts, 2 outdoor padel courts, a padel pro shop, in addition to a cafe to assist and support the padel courts. The applicant is pleased to announce that the first tenant of the commercial space will be the sales center office for the newly approved residential development at 301 Ocean Drive. Before I turn over, I think you're going to be very happy to see that this design and site plan, the direction and objective is to create a reduced massing than maybe the other application that you saw and might have approved in the past. So we're hoping you'll enjoy that. It'll have a little less of a traffic impact with sufficient parking on site, all surface parking, and it'll be spread across, the 2 uses will be spread across 2 different structures. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ayman to give you a little overview on the design and the site plan itself.
Good afternoon. Ayman Mansour with ODB Architects, the architect on the project, and I think...
You want to speak
you need
directly?
To, sorry.
Yeah.
I say
Can
Ayman
we
Mansour.
lift the podium up? Or
at
the counter, you could lift the podium up. But you got to work on that.
All right. So we'll go ahead and start. So as Ian mentioned, like the entry site, as everyone knows where it's located, and then we'll go into the site plan. So our site plan, as the first thing is we have which is the office spaces where the sales center will be occupying the space. And then we have the battle courts, which we have 2 outdoor right here. And we have the enclosed battle courts in this space with the cafe that will be located within here. And we are providing a surface parking right within the park that is for the spaces that is being proposed here. And as you can see, since we understand that this is the entry block into that space, we wanted to make sure that the first thing, as you see, is not just the parking. We are trying, and we'll get to that level when the landscape, we're trying to make sure that it's covered with some landscape and that it's hidden, and then it could be actually preserve that view or visual as you enter into the village. And so these some of the material / inspiration images that we're taking for the space. What we're looking for is more of like wood, natural materials that blends with the existing, right? And something that doesn't empower the site or the entry. And then the battle courts, this is just an example of the spaces. The enclosed one, as we mentioned, you're gonna have the courts with the cafe space, so the ability for the view, and the outdoor ones will basically the battle court glass and then, the courts itself. And here's the elevation. So the building is being raised into the flood elevation. And as Ian mentioned, like we were trying to be very sensitive with the mass to make sure it's not a building that is like a massive or like empower the site, something that within maintain the elevations and the mass of it. We are raised about 6 feet above grade, existing grade to be at 10 foot for flood elevations, and the building itself at 12 feet. Some other of the materials, as we made the glass, the wood materials, and show you the elevation mass of it. So the courts is, just because of the requirements of the courts, has to be 30 feet, but we're trying to be very sensitive of that and trying to put some of the mural and some of the landscape to cover it, so it's not like a massive building, and we're trying to make it disappear within the site and the rest of the spaces that are being proposed. Some other elevations, and this is the elevations from Kerndon Boulevard. So one of the things is we wanted to make sure we're not creating a wall that separates the space from the rest of the sidewalk. So we keep in some of the landscapes and the existing bollards, and trying to make sure that there's that connections between the space and the sidewalk. And I'll give it to Hernando.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. As part of the development of the project, we'll obviously be doing drainage, and the drainage that we're looking at will exceed the requirements of Durham and the city and the village. We're proposing to drain the site utilizing 3 drainage wells. They're all going to be interconnected. In addition to that, for the lower areas, we'll be proposing some exfiltration trenches. And the idea is, in order for the drainage system to work better than it is right now, we're going to elevate the site in as much as possible to be able to create enough head on the drainage system to dispose of the stormwater. The elevations on the perimeter are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4.5 feet NGVD. We're bringing that up to about a 6.5 to 7, and the finished floor will be set up to an elevation of 10, which is FEMA plus that 1 foot that is required. I don't know if you have any questions, but like I said, very, very similar to what is typically done, with a redundancy of interconnection of the drainage system, as well as redundancy in the drainage disposal capacity by addition of an additional well, more and above what is typically required. We're going to now go over the landscaping.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Jeff Suter with EDSA. So we're working with the ownership group in coming up with a landscape plan that'll help soften and complement the building and the spaces that are there. We're looking at pretty much trying to do as much native palette as we possibly can, and then put a little splash in the areas at the arrival. When you come off of Kerndon Boulevard, there's a handful of existing trees that we'll keep in place, and then we'll complement that with, there's buttonwoods, mahoganies, and some other trees that will happen within the parking lots. And then where the spaces are tighter, we'll end up going with vechias, sable palms, thatch palms, and a handful of others. And then a lot of the lower ground, native ground cover that would be in there that would be keeping with in and around the village. So with that, it's fairly simple, but we'll be working with the architects and everybody to make sure that it meets the code and complements the building. Thank you.
We do have one rendering that we can show you this evening. We're still working on ironing some things out, but we did want to give you an example of what it would look like as you're entering into the village.
Hi, everyone. David Martin, 3310 Mary Street. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for hearing us today, and appreciate just the words, because I do, my daughter next year is starting at Key Biscayne K through 8, so that's another big moment that I'm excited about. And I just want to say, our goal here is to do 2 things, right? Beautify the entry block, which I think is important with a very low scale development. We're talking about 5,000 square feet of really office space in a way, but in a really cool design. I don't know if we have any other renderings here, but basically, this shows you kind of an aerial that kind of shows the one-story office, and then basically the two padel courts. Padel's become a sport that's really getting adopted and becoming very popular and throughout the county and really, you know, worldwide. They're talking about Olympics starting to have that sport. It's things like that, and so this has been kind of a movement, and I think it'd be a great amenity in a sports facility that would be open to a lot of Key Biscayne residents, and the property owners that own the property. We're the tenants. We're leasing the property from the property owners, and we're working with them very closely on designing something really interesting and cool that'll be a community asset, and we're satisfying all the parking requirements that the village has. So just really excited for the opportunity, and we're here obviously to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's go.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Great idea, cool idea. Really like it. It's close to my house. It's great. The only thing that I'm kind of stuck with, and it was one time there was a presentation on that corner as well, is, you know, that's the entrance to Key Biscayne, right? So one imagines, and I'm not necessarily thinking that this should be the idea, but I'm just saying, you know, one imagines kind of a striking type of, you know, entranceway building. And this is nice, but it feels a little frangible. It feels a little bit like more like, you know, the other stuff you're doing on Silver Sands. It's great because it's not impactful. I'm not sure how council feels about that, but it feels to me like when you make an entrance into Key Biscayne, you want to show it's Key Biscayne, and I'm not getting that feeling. That's just strictly from an aesthetic standpoint. I think it's a great concept, but just that. And then the other question, but you want to answer that, because then I had another question.
Yeah. I think we could study that and really kind of maybe create some sort of green space, kind of pocket park, kind of maybe even try to give Key Biscayne an identity or kind of a signage for the village. I think would be something pretty cool and interesting that we could study creatively. So we'll work on that with the design team to
Nothing
to
crazy,
come
but
back.
just
Yeah,
at least
something.
it's better than seeing the gas station when you come in, but at the same time,
No,
it's
no,
a little
100%.
bit hidden.
And,
So.
and I was looking at the elevation of the landscaping. I think our renderings can probably, as we, you know, today's a workshop, we're going to be coming back hopefully, and so our idea is we'll work on the landscape renderings as well, because I don't think it's giving justice to that
Perfect.
That area yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that. So, and the other one was, I had two more. We don't anticipate any conflicts with the incoming traffic. I know you got the right lane build on that, and we're gonna have some backup. Do we anticipate any, have we done a quick traffic study?
They're gonna have to with their full site plan.
Okay,
application, they'll have to do
let's
a
take a look at that,
traffic
because we worked very hard on that right turn, so we want to make sure that that keeps flowing. You know, that right turn by the gas station. And the other question I had was all the drainage that's always been an issue in that area. It finds its way, meanders throughout. It ends up by where the Golden Hog is, the parking lot. I'm not sure if it comes in that area.
Absolutely.
Are you going to help straighten that out?
So stay on the traffic side, again, much less intense, right, than the use that we had before, but understand from a street section perspective that we need to kind of make sure vision triangles and everything are appropriate. So we'll work on that, and we'll come back with a much more detailed traffic plan. And Hernando, on the drainage?
Yes, on the drainage, what we're doing is, what happens right now is the elevations are fairly low, 4.5. So what we're trying to do is we're bringing up the elevation on the site. We're coming from 4.5 to about almost 7, 6, 7. So what that's doing is actually allows us for that drainage system to work more efficient. In addition to that, we're adding more wells than typically needed. You know, so that's going to help, right? Again, you know, bringing it up, additional drainage, you know, trying to add all that, I think is going to make a big difference.
Okay.
Are you using, excuse me, sir, are you using retaining walls around the whole project?
We are going to be introducing some small retaining walls. Again, we don't have that much depth on site where we can bring it too high, but we're trying to make every effort, right? Remember that we also have to make it accessible to fire. So with that in mind, you know, the maximum slope that we can bring that elevation is at 5%. That's a 1 in 20. So 1 vertical for 20 horizontal. So we're doing all those things within the constraint of our site.
One last question. We already have a little bit of a bike challenge with this area with bike traffic. So how are you going to deal with the bike lane? Because your entry and exit is right across the bike lane. We already have a little bit of we have one gentleman here tonight who's discussing the bike issue with the turning lane. This is a real potentially looks like another conflict. I just want to know how we're going to deal with it.
I think we're gonna speak to Kimley Horn, our traffic planner, and come up with a best practice. Right now, we gotta, just thinking out loud, mirrors, warning signs. Maybe there's some lighting. On the crosswalks, you have these lighting conditions, and so let's try to be creative because we got to be safe, and that's the number one priority. So. We'll come back with a real detailed proposal on that, so that to make you guys comfortable, we're doing the best practice.
I have some questions.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm understanding who's who
You gotta
here.
know.
Is Environmental Resilient Communities LLC the property owner?
So we're the tenant and the applicant. So we're the we're leasing the property, and we're going to be building this on the property owner's land. And we're going to be leasing it for a period of time. I think it's close to probably 5 years or something like that.
Okay, so is this a temporary approval or is this a permanent approval?
It's a permanent approval, so these aren't temporary structures. They're all hurricane resistant to the building code, et cetera. So they're all permanent buildings that we're building here. Nothing,
Okay, so
no
it-
temporary trailers or anything like that.
At the end of the day, when your sales are all wrapped up and you've sold out, maybe that'll take 6 months.
Sure.
What is going to happen?
So-
You as
so-
a tenant will go out and
So we'll be there for the life of the because this becomes kind of a discovery center, not only for the project but just kind of a community space as well when we do these types of facilities. And so the idea is we're going to use it for that time frame, assuming Padel continues to be a great business, which I think it will be, and will be a great business. I think they may not choose to redevelop that, but I honestly don't know can predict what's going to happen in that time frame. But I assume that we're investing a significant amount of money in building a beautiful building and also facilities. So given that investment, I think the likelihood of assuming the business model for the Padel works well, I think this could be a long-term use. But I don't know exactly what's going to happen after our lease is over.
Who's going to operate that?
That's going to be operated by a professional team that's working with the ownership with the property owner.
So they have a separate lease that's
No, so the
independent?
property owner owns it. We have to build it for them, and then basically they operate and run the Padel. We're leasing the office space, and then after our lease is over, then the property owner will then own both facilities and either bring in a new tenant for the building or whatever plans they may have after we're done.
Okay, I just have a couple more
Sure.
questions. Do you have a golf cart entry?
We don't have a golf cart entry, but that's a great idea, and I should have thought of that. And we need to incorporate that into the site plan. That's a very good comment. Yep.
Okay, the murals are going to be on the Padel, on the enclosed Padel courts?
So there's basically 3 air-conditioned closed Padel courts. There's 2 outdoor. The kind of artistic look and feel would be only on the indoor courts, because the outdoor courts are kind of glass.
Right.
So they don't have a structure.
So as I looked at the documents you submitted, there are going to be murals on all 4 sides?
I believe so, that's correct, but I think that, I'm not sure if they're doing it in between, I'll come back to you on that, but I'm 100% sure that on all 4 sides of all 3 of them, there will be, but maybe in between, I'm not sure if they're thinking of doing murals there or not, because I don't know if the spacing's that significant.
Will those be visible from off the property?
I would say probably there's going to be a lot of trees, because really this rendering just between us is probably not an accurate reflection of our landscape, because we want to make this a garden, and we have Raymond Jungles working with the EDSA on the whole garden. So I don't think this has the exact treatment. I think we're going to have a lot of trees, and I think honestly those trees are going to be blocking those buildings, because it's really, I think the building's height's around 30 feet. But yes, that would be more visible probably than the office, because the office is really just a one-story building. So basically, you have a two-story padel court and a one-story office building on the site is basically what we have.
Okay, so my comment about that is, when you come into the island, it may very well be that the first thing you see are those murals. I can't
I
really tell
doubt that.
from this.
From this perspective, just from knowing from the site is, I think the padel courts will never be seen from the street. But I'm going to prepare a whole rendering workshop to really prove that, and maybe even try to do a little camera. It's just I have to synchronize the actual landscaping, because I really feel the goal of Key Biscayne in this project is that this is a tropical landscape, and I honestly, and I think you're 100% right in asking the questions, because I don't think we're accurately reflecting our landscape plan in these images, and I think we're going to work on that for our next meeting.
Okay, my last 2 points are, the building's going to be 30 feet high?
I believe so, yes.
30
Yes,
or
ma'am.
30 plus?
No, so the courts, it sits at a lower elevations than the space. So the building itself is 30, but like from elevation 4 or 5, I believe, and then the space itself is at 10 feet NGVD, and then 13 feet. So there's not that many. That's why in the elevation, if we go back to the presentation, there's not that big difference between the two elevations, because the course itself is sitting 5 feet lower than the space, than the office.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the courts, I'm worried about driving into the Key and the first thing you see is a very tall.
No, I really feel that what is going to be seen is landscaping. What we do here, kind of based on one of the comments as it relates to creating an entryway, signage feature, landscape, and maybe some very cool signage feature, and also the one-story office building that's going to be cladded in really cool architecture. From a tropical standpoint, and we have other renderings that we're working on. These are kind of like CAD renderings, or not the real perspective. I apologize for not getting this done, with a high quality renderings, but we'll work on those perspectives, because what you will see is the entry now, a lot of landscaping, and you'll see this the one-story office building. You will really not be seeing these buildings from your entry court, and I think these buildings are going to be serve kind of this purpose, and kind of that's why we tucked them in the back, right? Like, in a way, we're not putting them along the side. Yep.
So I would really like to see really good renderings, so I get a better feel for the
Yeah, definitely.
magnitude of
Definitely.
how imposing the building's going to be. My very last question is about the sign. I saw on the documents that it looked like right by your driveway, right before it even, there might be a sign. So
what we'll do is we'll work on a signage plan that incorporates maybe some Village of Key Biscayne signage, as well as kind of the signage plan that's identifying the place that people are coming to. That's a good question, and we'll add that incorporate that, more of that detail, and work with staff to do that.
thank you for
No,
patience.
this is good. Thank you. Good comments.
Do you, is the stormwater easement done? Are we worked out?
It would need to be a part of this.
Your site plan will take that into account.
So can you don't have the answer to that. It's okay. You could say you don't know.
10
but
foot
we
along
will. We can and we will. But
Surprise.
yeah,
Thank you. 10 foot along the northern boundary.
10 feet along the northern boundary, there's a stormwater easement that should have been picked up in our survey, but we'll double check that. But Iman, we will make sure that we incorporate that and have no conflicts with the stormwater. So we'll be complying, and whatever we have to do to comply to that.
To be fair,
There were
it was an easement that was imposed as a condition of the previous
site
approval.
plan,
So it has not been probably recorded yet, because that hasn't materialized.
Got it.
So-
But
it was-
the goal is for us to
have-
continue
Yes.
for this approval to have that as a condition, and I don't see that as as being a problem. No, I don't see that as being a
And
problem.
Chad, just a point of information, on that previous site plan that was approved, what happens to that site plan now? It's
This-
still
this-
approved,
this-
but this takes
this-
precedent over it for the
we-
short term
we-
of the 5 years, or how does
No,
that work?
we only allow one site plan
Okay,
per site here, so this would be the governing site
the
plan.
new site plan.
Yes.
The elevations on that site plan, were they the 30 feet that they're suggesting here as well?
That's more.
It was taller.
The previous one was higher. I thought so too, but I wasn't sure.
The-
35 plus
The
courts.
previous elevations were 35 feet tall to the roof, and then they also had an activated roof with padel courts on the roof.
That's right. And we had requested not only the easement, but I believe there was some other request for the roof, for covering, for any mechanical, I believe it was.
The
So I
previous.
just want to make sure
yeah,
that some of the asks that we had get incorporated into this, so that we have kind of a like for
I
like.
think the previous approval had the Patel courts, or there were
right.
some courts on the
roof.
On the roof,
So
yeah.
there was a concern to screen that, but our code does require screening of any mechanical equipment.
That's a
Anything
default
else.
condition, yeah.
And then I just wanted to reiterate what Councilman recommended, because he's going to bring it later, as far as the conflict that actually unintentionally we kind of created in creating our right turn lane, which has helped, but there is a conflict there with the cyclists, and anything you can do to help in that would be greatly appreciated from safety measure.
Frank, you had
Just
another-
a last question. I was curious about the Padel operation. Is it intended to be a private club, or is it reservation, first come, first served?
You know, there's different models, and right now, there is a membership model, obviously, and there's a membership model where you get basically a package of sessions, and then there's the à la carte where you could come in. To be perfectly frank, it's not my decision what happens on that, and obviously, I'll try to work on submitting on the record an outline of what we're gonna be doing there, so you guys know, but I've seen both models work, like Sunset Harbor, for instance, has two indoor courts, and it's a membership model, but they also allow à la carte people to come in. But the membership just gets you preferential times to be able to use the court, and so that's kind of the only nuance. But I think I'll try to work on getting an outline of the whole operational plan of the Padel courts.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
I remembered another question, sorry. Do you anticipate having to apply for variances? Variances?
No, ma'am.
The parking looked like
Nothing.
there's some things over the line?
Nothing. Nothing. We got to comply to all setbacks, comply to the height, we're much less intense than the prior approval. Yeah. And going back to your point, because I didn't know that answer, by the way, and I hope ownership knows that, basically the fact that they're getting this approved makes it seem that they're really making an investment to use these facilities for a long term, right? Because they are apparently abandoning their prior site plan. So I think that gives some sort of commitment for the long-term longevity they have for this use and this operation at the site. Yep.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. I think I learned in my briefing, the sales office is 4,089 square feet, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And the rest of the development is about 21,000 square feet, the different paddle courts and.
Right. And it's really the cafe is a very small amount of square footage. And then the Padel courts can really only be used by 4 players. So typically Padel's off 2 and 2, so it's always twosome, so it's a much more social sport. And so really, you're talking about active use, right? So it's, even though there is that square footage, I think probably the impact is much less because it's a court rather than kind of an office or a restaurant or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. This, just to remind people, the site plan approved before was a much more extensive use. We're talking about, I think it was 30-some thousand square feet. And
mixed use.
And it had office and retail.
Right.
So this is a completely different approach to it. You're talking about a building with 4,000 square feet. and the courts surrounding it. Not to be repetitive, but I would echo my colleagues' talk about the landscaping being, because this is the entrance to our village, and one of the staff that you had commenting on this spoke correctly. This is, for better or for worse, it's called the entry block piece. So it's something that needs to shine so that people coming into the village will be impressed by the landscape that we have at the front. Just another, just so the people understand, one of the things that we've done is to give you 2 bites at this apple, and this is a informal view of what's coming. They will have a final hearing in a month or 2 or whatever. That will then be the site plan review. So this is great. This is, if Brett is listening, I think it was a Brett idea. So this is working as it should. It's like this, you get some comments so that you can improve upon what's coming. No action is being taken tonight, and this is not a quasi judicial hearing, but we appreciate your coming forward and giving us this first look at it. And then when you come back, then all the I's have to be dotted and the T's have to be crossed. So we'll want to hear from Mr. Jeremy. Is there anything else that we need to be aware of as this comes back to us?
No, as you said, this is exactly for this. Your aesthetic comments, the legal things, that'll be our job to run the analysis and make sure it's complying with code as we move forward. So this really should please take advantage. If there's anything comments you want to say regarding everything from presence on the street to, as you've already said, we need more information about landscape. This is an important first bite at the apple.
As far as we know, there's no at the Harbor Plaza Shopping Center. Will there be a way to get through from there, or we don't know that yet?
So historically, there had been a connection at different points in the past. That is an arrangement between 2 private property owners. And we don't really have an influence on that as a village. They can actually, they're free to attempt to negotiate with the adjacent property owner, but we can't hold them accountable for an adjacent property owner's decisions.
Okay, that would be either at that spot or somewhere else. The comment, I also would applaud the comment of having golf carts being able to get through there. So obviously, for us that are living residents here, you won't have to go out and come back into the property if that were possible.
So unfortunately, using like the traffic circle adjacent to Calusa Park is not currently legal for non-licensed golf carts because you're onto the county road at that point. It would be great to have an MOU maybe to get the golf carts out just that far so people could get to Calusa and get access to this site. But as it stands, that's not legal.
Jeremy, is Kimley Horn going to come back with a traffic study for the egress and ingress of that space? Because that's a pretty tight corner, especially when you're coming in and you're exiting from the same space.
That's actually a requirement of the site plan approval that we have the traffic study.
So just to clarify, there's only one way in and out.
Yeah.
There is one way in and out there. So
you have to effectively leave the village of Key Biscayne to come back into that site.
Correct. You have to go outside of village limits to get back to the site.
That's not.
The Calusa traffic circle is there, and that's how they're going to access. This is actually, I think, from our turning lane standpoint, only utilizing the existing curb cut, which is the farthest away from the corner, is to our advantage.
I mean,
Okay.
Jeremy, also, so they require to do a traffic study, we also are required to do an analysis on it, right?
We'll need to do a peer review of the methodology and the final results. So
we'll have to.
This is going to be a tight schedule for that. Yeah, this is, and again, it's just reminded, it is true, this is a much less intense usage compared to the previous approved site plan, reflected in the greatly reduced number of parking spaces. You know, the padel courts are large square footage footprints, but small parking requirements due to, you know, how they're utilized.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. We look forward to the next meeting with the, whenever it comes. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for coming out.
Thank you. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the ad hoc committee update to council. Councilmember Bracken. The ad hoc committee update to council.
Okay, so guys, I sent out a memo earlier to, actually Jocelyn sent the memo out. Are we going? Okay. So as you know, I don't think there's really necessary for me to read this memo. That would be kind of redundant. If there are questions related to the memo, I think we can ask some of those questions. You know, both Fernando and I are here tonight. Unfortunately, Ed's not. It has been rather, you know, difficult to go through this issue. As we all know, there's a lot going on. We are waiting for 2 additional proposals that Steve is working on getting out, that going through the basis of design, which has both been modified to a 5-year, 24-hour plan, to the medium curve, and to only 25 feet of coverage from the roadway, which is very different than the original proposals. So we're waiting for that model, hopefully to get that model approved. We're going to bring back to council probably within the next 2 to 4 weeks a whole slew of things that for your review and update. So I think that's really all I have to add. Fernando, you have anything?
I just want to say I am extremely honored, honestly. I think we've had our, obviously it's been a very dynamic discussion, but I want to thank Councilman Bracken for stepping into this, because I understand this is not an easy thing. You know, it took me 35 years to get it in my head, so he got it really quickly. So that says a lot. And as well as Council Member London, and how hard both working, and we're all working in trying to determine, you know, what the best course of action is for this significant investment and significant undertaking for our community. Make no mistake, this is not an easy task. So obviously we are, thank you for this report. I appreciate you going through this. I do want to just indicate just a couple of things, just to underscore a couple of things of what I thought in the committee were important, is that I can see that we're looking, and I've expressed this before in the past, we're looking for ways to try to minimize the amount of, not minimize the amount of runoff, but really hit the mark on what the amount of runoff is. Not go too, you know, overreaching with a runoff, neither be under designing. So we're trying to find that common ground in there, so we make the right investment in the right. The problem is that it is a moving target. You know, we've discussed potentially looking at a 5-year storm event, looking at a 2050, maybe horizon. I think at one point, Mr. Manager, it's going to be important for us to have that professional input when it relates to these decisions that we're looking at, because what we're trying to do really is, as you know, we're looking at the groundwater infiltration, we're looking at ways of looking at sea level rise projections, but I would expect, and I would account for the consultants or whoever steps as a professional to let us guide us in the right direction, see if we're going there. Okay, so again, I just want to thank the committee for the really hard work they're putting in, and I'm proud to be part of that committee, and we're going to come back with something really good and strong, and we're going to make it work. Okay?
Great. I appreciate the the committee's work. I set it up because I thought you three would have the most to add to the discussion and give us the proper policy that we need to go forward. So I'm happy that it's coming together, and everything is on the table. So it's like, you know, I hear people say, "Oh no, that part of it is over." No, it's not over. Everything is here when we're still looking at it, and we're trying to reduce costs or find a better way to do the same thing. But our objective is the same, and it's reduce flooding on Key Biscayne. Absolutely. Whether it comes from storm surge, whether it comes from groundwater, sea level rise, whatever. That's our mission, and so we're going to go ahead and attack that, make sure that we do everything that we need to do. So. If it takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer, but I think that the committee is on the right track, and when we get something back, we will have plenty of time to share it with the public and also to provide our input. Okay?
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the consent agenda.
Move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending ordinance number 2024-16, which adopted the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 by revising the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Did we
Yeah, we skipped
miss
something.
8B?
Yeah.
It was part of the consent agenda.
Oh, I see.
was?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I move it.
Second.
9A is moved by Mr. Kaplan, seconded by Mr. Sardinius. Discussion. Oh, let me open the public hearing. Public hearing on ordinance 9A. Seeing no one come forward, public hearing is now closed. Discussion on the item before us. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Vice Mayor Sardinius?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoner?
Yes.
Councilmember Vasquez?
Yes.
Mayor Roscoe?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken? Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted on second reading. The next item on first reading is an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 30-11 definitions and Article 8 signs of Chapter 30 zoning and land development regulations of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to definitions, non-commercial structural symbols, and monument signs, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Well, we better get a discussion going, so I'll move it.
I have Mayor Roscoe and Councilmember Vasquez.
Yeah, I second that.
The public hearing required as
First reading, yes, public hearing is now open. Seeing no one come forward, public hearing is now closed. Initial discussion on the item. This is first reading.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Let's see where it is. On the height. There's Jeremy.
Hi, sorry
On
about
the
that.
height. I could read that two ways. The height could be the height of the sign itself, or the height of the sign from the ground. So could you clarify that?
So it's a height from the sign from the ground,
Should
I
we
believe. So
delete it?
this is not the symbols, right? We're talking about the
Right.
signs themselves, yeah.
So the maximum height, the top of any symbol.
The symbols are allowed to be taller than.
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
signs.
sorry, I am talking about the symbols. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
so
I am talking about the symbols.
The symbols are measured from the ground.
So Jeremy, the symbols that are out there in the public, are they in compliance with these height measurements right now? So is the menorah in compliance? Is there some of the religious ones on the Catholic Church in compliance? Because we don't want to.
Yes, yes. I was in the lawn myself with a tape measure.
Okay, just
Both the menorah and the cross that had been up at St. Agnes are of sizes that are compliant with the symbols ordinance here in terms of square footage and height.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. We still have a quorum here. If
You want
if
me
you
to,
have if you have some comments that you are going to make so that the director can look at it and make some adjustments for second reading, then
Can
go
you,
right ahead.
can you take us back a bit? We've been working on this ordinance for what feels like a very long time. I think this commercial and institutional signage ordinance and swales are good examples of non-urgency. But here we are, after all of this time, and it seems to me within the last year, we really focused specifically on commercial and signage. Did we finish that work, or is this a pivot?
The commercial signage is done.
Okay, we're done.
We've allowed what is essentially the signage for monument signs. It's part of this package is sort of a mirror of what we allowed for commercial district.
I thought we already, so we already allowed monument signage in commercial district.
Correct.
We talked the last time we were together on this subject about the historical monument signs for the churches. I think we came to the conclusion that there is no monument sign for the yacht club, and there's the one crazy outlier in South Mazda Drive, which nobody understands, but
But that's not commercial.
that's not commercial.
So the way this ordinance is currently constructed, the historic monument signs that are at churches would need to come down and be replaced with something compliant with this standard within 2 years.
So the very last time we were together, one of the takeaways, which was simply thinking aloud, was to not require that to happen so long as the signs that exist, which are familiar, were maintained in good repair.
I think we can alter that between first and second reading to allow a sort of grandfathered clause, and that they would. We just need to be careful to make sure we allow maintenance, but no expansion and no significant changes in lighting and that sort of thing.
And we had one other observation concerning the community church, which is singular because it's got two sides. Right, so we were going to limit the monument sign to one side
to one side
to Fernwood.
And look, they can still have indicators for entrances and address information. That's different than the monument sign.
So I guess I come then to, I don't know, an instinctual reservation. With all of this work and the duration and complexity of this analysis, now we're introducing symbols. And that unsettles me. At the bottom of all of this, we're really regulating clutter and eye candy. And, that's what all of this is really rooted in, to be, kind of design friendly and to allow deference for location purposes, and which is what I think our comp plan criteria specifically speaks about, being able to aid the navigator to get to the shopping center, although it's rather self-evident that it's a shopping center. But the details of what service providers and restaurants and retail outlets are located within, I think we've all understood to be an important point to support trade and commerce. And we've gotten there. Now we introduce symbols. I don't know, I don't have a survey or perfect omniscience. I believe, or at least I surmise, that some people find sectarian iconography controversial. And I think to observe that for the benefit of all of us who are considering this. I personally am ambivalent about it. But introducing another installation where the whole purpose of this is to reduce clutter and reduce verticality and visuals for aesthetics and still defer to the comp plan purpose of enabling people to find things with good design, consistent with our well-developed and vetted over many years community design standards, seems to me like a good place to stop. Less is better than more to me. And so this is mostly aesthetic and to some degree sensitivity to iconography, sectarian symbolism in a pluralistic community. There, I've said it.
So Frank, you want to take it out? You want to take the symbols out?
I don't know why we're going down this road with now there are symbols in houses of worship, but they're architectural and they're just part of the building. And in other places in the United States, for example, the Chabad houses that you see in various places, the menorah is a symbol, but it's basically affixed. So I see that commonly, and it's inoffensive to me. The churches all have crosses, inoffensive to me. But to have installations in the public realm superfluous to those architectural features is a new and novel thing here. And I think the justifications in the review criteria are actually rather conclusory without real support.
I disagree completely on this issue with my good friend and colleague. The menorah and the cross are at the heart of our country and at the heart of everything that we stand for. So it would be difficult that we would leave that out. And so I think that this solves a problem that there was nothing in the code that would say yes or no. We're beginning to have a place where we can address this situation. The village made the Catholic Church take out a cross. Okay, that's offensive to me, as it would be to remove the menorah from where it is. So I think that this ordinance pulled out the commercial part of it and said, okay, we have some peculiar situations in the institutional area, and we need to address those. And I think that this is the attempt to do so.
Yeah, we obviously don't see eye to eye on this. The existence of crosses and menorahs is not the same thing as, in my mind, as allowing vertical installations in the public realm. These things exist, and I wouldn't want to predate the menorah. You know, they should be entitled to something too. But there are other ways to do this rather than allowing symbolic affixations in the public realm. And I don't think this is. Now, let me get to another substantive point, because I've made my point on that, and you'll either agree or you'll disagree. 3202 special conditions is completely incomprehensible to me. These references to letters, figures, characters, marks, logos, strokes, stripes, trademarks, I started to try to imagine what was intended, and I gave up after either an hour or a 3-second span. I don't know what we're trying to get at here.
I can speak to the intent. The intent is to limit the percentage of written language on the symbols so that these don't functionally become a second monument sign.
One way to do that is to have no content. A symbol's a symbol. I can think of anything from the 1930s caricaturizations of anti-Semitic figurines to tropes that are concealed denigrations in social media as falling in this bucket. I'm going to oppose this for the reasons that I've stated.
Okay.
Jeremy, I think what would be very helpful for me is, as being new on the council when it comes to the signage, is I'm still confused on what type of sign, to be frank, okay? And I think it would be very helpful for the community as well, is that there's an example. This is a monument sign. This is the dimensions, a visual dimension, okay? And this is a symbol, the visual dimensions, and so that we have visual. I'm a big person, like to see things, okay? And with all the documentation, it's great, but it would be very helpful if there was some visuals, okay, to these, if that.
I'll provide it for next meeting, so that distinctions between.
Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, like height, just examples.
And to be frank, these are sort of artificial distinctions by definition, but they do result in actual built work. So we have examples of all of them from the village that we can show.
For me, I mean, just as a contractor coming in saying, hey, I need to build XYZ sign in front of my store, you need something to reference to, and it's challenging to kind of look at it and kind of figure out what's what.
Yeah, no, and also we are relying on sort of terms of art in the sign builder game that we don't really need to define because they're commonly used terms like reverse channel lighting, and I'll provide some examples of that so you know exactly what we're talking about.
I think we have those examples when we did the commercial district.
I think we did, so I can provide them again.
Just to clarify with you, Councilmember Kaplan, you talk about language that's incomprehensible, but you're talking to the ordinance as a resolution as it is. You just don't want to back it, or are you suggesting that there's language that can maybe do a better job, as Councilmember Bracken mentioned, to explain what we're trying to do or what the intent is, according to Jeremy?
I think.
Or are you completely opposed to it?
I think Councilmember Bracken's point was somewhat different. It was more about what the monument sign is going to look like, how big it is, what the letters are going to be, how it's illuminated, and that those illustrations exist, and we'll get them.
Okay.
On the language in special conditions, Jeremy's now explained the intent. I suppose multiple levels of reaction, but one is if we're worried about content on symbols, simply proscribe content on symbols. This is wide open and caused me to reflect on lots of misuse that could be potentially subtly denigrating and offensive on a religious symbol. So that's one thing. More basically, with the purpose of reducing clutter and the eye candy phenomenon that exists in so many communities with LED signage and the like, and a multiplicity of signage types and branded architecture signage, that's not our value, that's not our vibe. And introducing symbols in the public realm seems like a place we've never gone. I don't think that it's consistent with the review criteria and the master plan as is, because that's all about location. It's not about symbolic expression. So I think that's simply misinterpreted in terms of the compliance or consistency. And that's the way I read it. That's where I am.
It feels to me like it's more of a philosophical and principle approach versus more of a governmental, pragmatic approach. In the code, I understand what you're saying. We don't want to let something that eventually could be misused or applied and open up a ground for other expressions that maybe fall more into the line of offensiveness and just on the
special conditions.
Right. So I believe that this discussion that we're having is far deeper to be resolved at this present moment in time. I can appreciate the fact that we need additional information. I do support that, but I want to talk about the specific neuralgic component of this discussion, which is, in my opinion, something philosophical and incorporated into something governmental and pragmatic and adopted in the code. I think it requires a little more hashing out.
My primary personal reaction is aesthetic and consistency with our kind of ethos developed over the years in terms of community design and the purpose behind this.
Right.
I am sensitive to the points that I mentioned about how people see sometimes, in I believe, sectarian iconography as I've described it.
Yeah, I understand.
So
So we have an ordinance on first reading. If all of you have issues that you want to bring up next time, or you want to discuss some of the practical aspects of it, you can do so within the time that we have, and we'll be looking at this one more time.
But I think we could add some of the feedback that was given with regards to explaining a bit better, visuals potentially, just to fully understand. And then some of the language could potentially change as well. And I think would give us an opportunity to have a better discussion on the second reading.
That's fine. I have one question. Councilmember Kaplan, your first comment was really towards the monument sign and the grandfathering in. You would like that to at least proceed if this were to move forward?
With respect to the churches, I think we did not have the same regard for the empanada sign, for example, at the arcade, right?
No.
Yeah, so that'd applies solely to institutional districts.
Institutional districts.
That's right.
Okay.
But I think Michelle, if I recall correctly, Michelle came to the meeting and she expressed that, that there's going to be a certain amount of cost structure that these business entities were going to have to deal with. And she said that she didn't think she would need at least a year or maybe 2 years in her one that she manages to get to that space.
So in that, at second reading, we changed it to 2 years to implement and roll it out, so.
And we also observed, I think, in connection with the square, for example, it's presumably compliant.
The square is not, actually, because that is an internally illuminated sign.
Okay. The Galleria?
The Galleria, I believe, is externally illuminated.
So in any event, we did intend to build in a time relief.
For commercial.
For commercial.
For institutional, do you want to, is the pleasure of the board to grandfather them in without any restrictions, just maintenance, can't be expanded, that type of thing?
That's where I was.
Yeah,
All right.
which is, I don't even know if we need to add additional language. If they're grandfathered, that means
Well,
they
we
can't
can,
expand.
but we can look at it,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure.
So Jeremy, when they do the temporary signage for Christmas and these types of things, the advertising big signs.
We have a different, I'll bring that along as well, because we do allow temporary signs under certain conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, which requires a separate permit.
Okay, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, but I'll give examples of that as well, because we also have prohibited temporary sign types.
I'm a little bit, and more from the standpoint of edifying myself and trying to understand how you see it, council member, because I think that you're bringing up some core concerns that is the public space a place for symbolic expression, or shall it remain, do we look at something that we should impose it to maintain itself as neutral? In this, from the standpoint, is that what you're inferring to? And also, if I may, because the underlying philosophy is that the public space is not a billboard to reflect anything you feel or how you express yourself. More, it should maintain neutral.
This is not in the public realm, like
No,
public
but
property.
whether it is or
This
it
on-
isn't, but that's the question that was brought, and
Yeah.
it is going to be codified, or eventually there is a suggestion of that, or at least I understood it that way.
No, this would
we have
be in
some
the
bad
right of
language,
way.
and we need to correct it, and
It's in the right of way, so that's.
It's not in the
No,
right of
it's
way.
not-
It's on
it's not in
private
the
property.
Private property.
It's on private
Oh,
property.
it's a private
So,
property. It's
well,
a-
let me
But is it-
clarify
but it-
though,
yeah.
because I think what's different is, and if I might, the one version is the building itself is the symbol, functionally the symbol, whether it's a steeple or a cross on top of a steeple, versus the space between the building and the technical right of way, which also, in this case, the setback space between the building and the property line. That's where we would be allowing these symbols in this case, which feels like a more public realm, but it is technically on the private property.
If it's on a private property, that's a
Yes.
separate discussion.
Yes.
It's a separate-
I think just to maybe explain it, if I can, Councilmember Kaplan was really focused on maybe a freestanding structure symbol as opposed to one that's incorporated into the architecture of the building.
Certainly, that's,
I think that was the distinction,
Okay,
so.
thank you for clarifying.
yes, that to me is a distinction. And as far as free expression in the public realm, of course, you should go to the parks and stand up on a soapbox and rail against injustice. But that's not the same thing as physical installations, in my mind.
Yeah.
I hadn't really considered the opportunity for abuse when I went through this, and I think that's a very real possibility. You never know, and I think this provides for that. So I'm very concerned about that.
That's where it was steering me on that. I didn't, you expressed it very well, Councilwoman. That's the way it was. This,
I just to clarify again, the symbols here would only be permitted on the institutional zoned properties. So I think when Jeremy comes back, he can actually show you visually which properties we're talking about also.
And these are the same symbols that have existed in time immemorial, so I have a really hard time thinking that that's going to change. But
How many symbols could there be?
So it's 25 square feet total is what's allowed. So we're not limiting the total number,
Jeremy,
but you're
why are you
effectively
doing-
limited.
Why are you doing it in square feet? It's a volume. It's a symbol is geometric. Why would you do it?
Right. It's
Versus-
still simple enough to estimate the square footage on even something that's like a three-dimensional sculpture. You can just sort of like draw an outline of it and get to a square footage estimate. We're not going to be doing projection mapping or anything elaborate. But, for instance, it's going to be a rough estimation, but you can get to a reasonable number for even a three-dimensional statue.
okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Yeah, I have a clarification on the amendments. I'm sorry.
There are no amendments.
There
There are no amendments.
I don't think there's an amendment. I think that what we understand, what the directive is.
Yeah, we'll pick things up between first and second reading.
Right.
Okay. Vice Mayor Sardinius?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoner?
No.
Councilmember Vasquez?
Yes, on the governmental pragmatic component.
Yes.
I still want to, yeah, it's a yes, but I want to.
Mayor Roscoe?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken?
Yes, with existing signage, meaning existing symbols, not modified symbols.
We cannot limit the type of symbol that would be displayed.
So this is where I'm struggling, because if everybody's worried about something being offensive and somebody goes in and decides they want to put a SWAT sticker on the front of their house, okay?
Well, this is only
That's on
institutional.
private
So-
property.
so-
It's institutional private property.
To
and
be
you want-
perfectly clear, though, if you have something like a Buddhist temple and their symbol is a swastika,
Well, it's-
that would be
it's-
allowed.
It's the reverse.
It is sorry. There was a Hopi symbol, I think. But yeah, you could have a satanic temple that could display symbols. Like, we do not limit content, and there's no guardrails on that, because we're constitutionally prohibited from placing guardrails on that.
So I think that's where I struggle too. And Joe, I want to support the traditional approach.
That's all we're talking about.
There's got to be a better way to write this that is more clear.
But that
aligns with what we're all kind of feeling. My yes is also provisional on the fact that I'm hopeful we can have another better discussion and more clarity about what we're trying to, what our intent is here. And so, it's just, I'm a little bit torn myself, even though I said yes, but I said yes to have that discussion. So what can we do?
I move to defer the item.
That's a better.
I second that. I second that.
So moved.
Third it.
But let's come back with something more structured to discuss these two critical issues. Because,
Hold on a minute.
maybe it's a
Motion to
5-4 card.
defer takes precedence.
Yes.
All those in favor of deferring the item, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right, so,
sorry,
look, you
Mayor.
have our
Motion
commitment.
carries.
We'll work on this. We'll get something that we think is much, much closer. And then,
Needs more work.
so that we
But,
really
yeah, I
are
think we
between
need to
first
have-
and
we need to
second
strike
reading.
that balance,
Yeah.
because obviously, you know, what's been discussed, it makes me nervous as well. I'm the only.
But I mean, we're looking at the worst. I mean, this
I
is
know,
like,
but-
you know, holy cow. This is stuff that has been there for time immemorial since the village started. I mean,
Fortunately,
it's,
the world's changing, Mayor. That's
yeah,
something we're worried
yeah,
about.
well, but, you know.
People are not as
So,
respectful as they were before.
Joe, is there a way to do something that we say, we grandfather in the existing?
We mentioned that. That was mentioned, right? As a-
We can grandfather existing signage. There are no grandfathered symbols that have been out there. There were no
Well,
symbols
The menorah is a symbol, it's been out there.
without a permit.
So we're saying that the menorah is out of permit?
That does not have a permit.
Okay. It's
So
never
what about,
happened.
is there a cross at the
Let's
church
tear it
now?
down now, guys.
No, the
Tear it
cross,
down.
the cross had
Come on now.
the cross had
Come
a
on now.
structural issue. It did
Yeah,
also, it
that's
was
not-
also put up without a permit, and it had a structural issue. It was not a stable structure.
But why do you think the existence of the menorah on private property is not compliant? It's not a sign.
So under the, in way I interpret this, under our current code, it is a sign.
Why do you think that?
Because our current code mentions monument signs can be symbols.
That's not the same thing as saying a menorah
Well,
is a monument
and,
sign.
and I don't want to misspeak because I would actually want to read the section of the definition from the code to be certain.
This is part of what we'll grapple with.
Yeah, because I see nothing wrong with the menorah, I see nothing wrong with a cross, I see nothing wrong with any of these things, but I also don't want somebody to buy a private building and put up something that's culturally offensive to anybody.
And the fact of the matter is that in these uses, there are multiple crosses in every church, and it's not a problem, and nobody's offended, and it's all beautiful.
Okay, well.
But when you make installations that,
I will bring it back and we'll have to work on it.
enough said.
The next item is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 25-31, Business Tax Schedule of Chapter 25 of the Village Code of Ordinances to increase the business tax receipt schedule rates, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Thank you.
How much are we increasing the taxes?
Public hearing is now open.
How much are we increasing the taxes?
Seeing no one come forward, public hearing is now closed.
I have a problem with this, so I'm just gonna put it out there, which is, with the closing of the Ritz right now, with the economic environment that's very unstable right now, I think our businesses, are not in a stable place, and I just don't think, even given the fact that our rates are substantially lower than that of other municipalities, I don't think this is the time to raise the rate, particularly since we haven't raised it in many, many years. And then 2 years ago, we raised it and realized we could raise it every 2 years, so now we're bringing up immediately another raise. I just don't think it's the right time.
So my understanding is that we've had the opportunity to raise it every 2 years, up to 5%, but have chosen not to over the last almost 15 years, except for once.
2 years ago.
I also understand that the proposed is still far less than the average municipality anywhere else. I also don't think it's ever a good time to raise taxes. I don't know that there ever will be. But when I look at the comparables, I think it tells a thoughtful story of the councils not to raise those taxes for whatever reason.
So, question, why are we using the CPI increase or some measurement like that on an annualized basis or
The ordinance actually limits it to a 5% increase every 2 years.
Yeah, but why use that? Why not use CPI?
I think that's a state.
There's a state law.
statute
Oh, yeah?
that governs this.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, because we would
That would
be
be
lagging
practical, that's
behind
right.
CPI for this particular 2-year stretch.
Let me ask you, it's generating 103,000 now, and this is 5%, so, what, $5,000 more or less?
Another $5,000 in change, roughly.
I think it's a lot of trouble to go to get $5,000, right?
Well, look, we intend to be back in 2 years, because currently another way of looking this is, do you want code compliance funded by the main users of the code compliance service or by ad valorem taxes? What we're trying to do with this is shift some of that away from property tax to the primary users of the service.
Yeah, if I could add on top of that, and this is, obviously part of this is, an opportunity to catch up. But I think equally important is a user benefit, user pay philosophy on how to tax the community. And also, we've made it and we've recognized that being 72% revenues from ad valorem tax is a vulnerability. And so what we're trying to do the best we can, and although this is small, is find other ways to increase our revenue share from other sources, because we know what Tallahassee is looking at in terms of property taxes. We want to make sure we put ourselves in the best situations possible.
Yeah. I'm with Nancy on this one. I can't get excited about raising $5,000.
If we,
Joe, is that 5,000 monthly or is that 5,000 annually?
Annually.
Annually.
That's annual now. Although I will also say that currently since I've been here, we've been steadily expanding and working on capturing more of the businesses that are functioning here. Like, we still are lagging on, for instance, the LLCs developing property. We haven't really captured those and made them get their BTRs because we've been trying to make the system digital and more efficient. So there is potential within the existing system to expand that, I think, probably by as much as 50% or so, just by doing better capture of existing businesses in the key.
When is the tax due? Is it February?
It's October, I believe.
Yeah,
we send them out in
bill
August,
in
and they're due in October.
and
Yeah, we send out bills beginning in August, September, and then they're meant to be collected in October.
our businesses have super high rents, and I think, as I said, the economic situation is really volatile right now, and I think we should be kind as much as we can. We need our businesses here to serve us and to encourage our tourists to come. So it's not that much money, but certainly an indication of how we feel.
The strategy of shifting as best as can be shifted from millage is a good strategy.
Yeah.
This is a dollop in a large ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But your point is that it's a dollop in a large ocean in the aggregate, but it's still impactful on taxpayers.
Okay.
So we are.
Councilmember Stoner?
No.
Councilmember Vasquez?
No.
Mayor Roscoe?
No.
Councilmember Bracken?
No.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Seems like unanimity is afoot.
And Vice Mayor Sardinius?
No.
The ordinance fails at first reading.
Okay, 9D, we withdrew.
Yes.
Okay, go to 10A.
The next, a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving a joint participation agreement with Miami-Dade County to receive $1,915,059 in county road impact fees for the Harbor Drive Improvements Project, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion on the item?
You're up.
We want explanation? We can do that. The county has provided us with road impact fee dollars to improve Harbor Drive. We're in the process of redesigning that corridor. It's mostly just going to be mill and resurfacing. I think you've heard that item before. Corradino's doing that work. So this is the JPA that they've sent us quite a while ago, an expectation for us to execute it, and then it goes to the county for execution, which will then allow us to begin that project from a construction standpoint.
So we're good with the money. This is what we need.
This is the max they've put in here is the 1.9. The amendment that you just passed included an additional 655. Because if we do stamped asphalt and additional landscaping and lighting, they're not going to pay for that, and that would cover that amount.
So Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but last time we talked about this, all the traffic calming was also not included in that.
The traffic calming off of Harbor Drive is not included, correct?
Right, so there's the roundabouts, all the traffic circles, those are not included in that.
The traffic circles in Harbor Drive are included.
Okay, so
what's included there is just asphalt where we were taking it.
We wanted to do stamped asphalt to mimic a brick paver approach, and that's going to be more expensive.
Then the brick pavers.
More expensive than the brick pavers.
No, we'd have to pay for brick pavers.
We would have to pay.
No, that's what I thought. We have to pay for all improvements, just.
All of the aesthetic improvements.
Yeah.
They're very utilitarian.
Anything other than asphalt.
Yeah, they
we have to pay
always
for.
do
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
and so the total.
Anything that makes it prettier. Yeah.
What was the rough total budget for the whole project?
I think we had about 2.15 million in this year's capital program, with 250 from us, about 1.9 from the county.
Thank you.
On the circles, when I think of asphalt, I think of impervious material. So I'd like us to look into possible pervious materials outside of just stamped asphalt.
We can put that in a bid, like as an alternate, and see what it comes back at. That might mean more of the cost would actually be borne by us, which is a different.
Because it's pervious material, would there be an opportunity for any type of grant or money
At
that might come as a result of that
the
type
timeline of this to get no. I mean, we would have to delay the project, and also we have a county dollar amount on here already. We wouldn't probably be able to use another county grant, and I haven't seen any grants that would support porous asphalt or porous materials other than the Biscayne Bay Water Quality Grant, but that again would delay us like quite a while to get that.
I thought that as far as pervious is concerned, because I'm with you on that philosophically, but my understanding was that the more pervious surfaces that would be available aren't good for roundabouts because of the kind of traffic.
I mean, I've seen some solutions that I brought it to the manager's attention that I've seen, and it seemingly there is some materials out there that can be used, including concrete that's porous.
So I can speak to that somewhat. I have experience with installations of porous concrete, porous asphalt, gravel paved systems, a variety of systems. There's a couple challenges in this particular case. Porous systems, in order to function, need to be pretty much dead level.
Okay.
Because otherwise sediment builds up in one section or another, and once you get sedimentation, they fill in very quickly. The other challenge is maintenance. You have to vacuum them. So this isn't a typical street sweeper. Street sweepers actually would jam dirt into the facility, so you need specialized equipment to maintain any kind of porous system.
Yeah, this particular solution is not porous. It's I don't really know how to describe it. How would you describe it, manager?
I'll show you what it
Okay.
is, and I think you've seen it. It's basically concrete with, for lack of a better word, poked out holes.
Yeah, no, I know that. That's porous concrete. It's like Rice Krispie treat texture. I've had samples of it.
No. It actually has.
Oh, this is the version with holes drilled into it. Okay, I've seen that as well.
I'll send it to you.
I've seen that as
It's
well.
something interesting.
But those as well, any installation like that needs to be dead level. Otherwise, you get accumulations and puddling, and then you get sedimentation that builds up. I could describe this better visually, but I am familiar with that system too. I think it's from Japan.
Yeah.
But they're all at at the basis the same. You've got some top layer that lets water through, and you've got a base course. They're also more effective where you have more distance between the water table and the surface.
Freeboard, yeah.
So I think we hear you.
Yeah.
Let us do some research.
Please.
You know, the challenges we're going to face is the expense and definitely the maintenance. And I think there's also some wear and tear issues. Jeremy, what's your experience on wear and tear issue?
So the system
In other
with
words,
the
a
whole,
life cycle. How
yeah, the system with the holes punched out, I can't speak to wear and tear. Any other system that I'm familiar with, they struggle with places with high turning movements, right? Like any pavements where you're turning wheels, particularly if a car is stopped in turning wheels, that's what puts the most stress on a pavement. So traffic circles are tough.
Well, that's where I'm going up from an operations standpoint, traffic operations. We got to have, I think that at times, while these traffic circles may delay the time from looking at life safety, you know, the firemen, et cetera, they got to get through, they got to drive through that. So is this going to be HS20 load? Is this going to be able to handle that design-wise? You guys need to make that. I mean, because if they got to drive, I don't see these guys driving around the bend.
You know, typically your traffic circles are built pretty heavy duty because of the intensity of the turning movements that are there. I'm not sure about the particulars and the loading.
The traffic circles right now are fairly old. We've just hit the life cycle of the traffic circles. The designers did do turning radii analysis for all the fire trucks. I am fairly certain that all of the roads on the village can handle the loads required for a fire
What
truck.
he's talking about the potential of the pervious material and its ability to hold the load.
Oh.
That's what he's talking about.
I'm talking
That would
about
just
being able to
be-
drive over it with a standard curve that'll just allow them to drive over it. And they don't have to go around the bend.
So there would be a concern because the way any porous pavement works, you have to start with a less compacted soil course below the pavement. Otherwise, if you compact it as hard as you would with anything else, the water just hits there and sits there.
Sure.
So usually these things are, I mean, you'll know this, but 99% compaction rate, Proctor's, the Proctor rate.
Right.
And pervious pavements are usually 95% or less. So, you know, usually when you're doing pervious pavement installations, you tend to put them in parking spaces, parking lots, lower traffic locations. This is sort of the exact opposite of that without it being a freeway.
Right. Well, that's why I'm particularly, I mean, if you ask me to choose, obviously I'm particularly interested in response times, fire response times. They got to be able to, if they need to drive through that, they got to be able to drive through it.
Yeah.
Right. That's, and make sure that it doesn't.
No, I mean, I
have the structural capacity to handle that.
We spec'd a lot of porous pavement in my previous career, but we were usually in parking lots because of the durability and the issues.
You go.
Just one question. Jocelyn, I know this is probably not for the topic now, but can we put on the schedule for discussion about impact fees at one time? Because we're constant, we have multitudes of houses in being built right now. And the people that are tearing up these streets are not the fire trucks, it's the concrete trucks. So the concrete trucks that are coming out here are just gonna keep on coming and keep on coming. And we've got to get them to start paying for the roads. Because we're the only municipality that I'm aware of that does not have an impact fee on a house.
Yeah, so Chad,
All right, wait. We're far afield from where we are.
No,
but,
I
but
understand
that's
that.
why, that's why he's wanting to have a discussion
Yes, sir.
item.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
Thank you.
Let's focus. We're getting $1.9 million from the county to do Harbor Drive, which is one of our premier roads. Super important. It's overdue. It's got all kinds of problems. People complain to me about it. Let's get it done and done fast. I appreciate the other conversation, but that's the heart of this is the 1.9, and it's going to be done separate from the circles, right?
It's simultaneous.
It will be
So to be clear, when we refer to the circles, we're referring to the circles on Harbor Drive.
Right.
It's gonna be all one project.
Okay.
We'll have to break out the cost of the additional aesthetic stuff and have we would pay for that, well, the
Right,
county.
right.
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 It's not like, it's not gonna be constructed separately, no.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we with the JPA? I thought that this was further advanced.
We need to sign it.
This is it.
But
We gotta have you guys
didn't we,
approve it and then
didn't we
sign
do
it.
this earlier in the year?
We got a draft. It got passed around through a few project managers. We didn't have a design, which meant we didn't actually know what the cost was gonna be, and we were hesitant to bring it to you and have you sign something if it was just gonna not be enough money.
All right. So Chad, how long does it take to get through, if we get it out here, how long does it take the county to send it back?
About 4 months.
Yeah, but that's okay,
We'll
because
do
we
it like
still
we
have to
did.
finish design, we have to bid.
And we'll do like we did in the entry block,
Yeah.
where we walked it through the infrastructure committee. So we're able to, we'll talk to Commissioner Regalado. It'll go through her committee,
Okay.
and we'll work on that one. We got that through pretty quickly.
Okay.
Relatively quickly, let's say relatively quickly.
All right, very good. On 10A, any other discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving a second amendment to the professional services agreement with AECom Technical Services, Inc., providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Okay, so
Who's seconded?
I second that.
Thank you.
all we're doing here is adding a one-year amendment to this existing contract, and if we don't give them work orders, they're not gonna do, it's not gonna cost us anymore. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah, it's a cost extension for a year. Their original contract was 3 years with 2 opportunities to extend a year and a year, so 5-year. So that comes up June of this year. And this enables them to continue working on what they're doing now.
Who's doing the permitting?
They are.
They are?
That's
Okay.
ongoing.
And that's on an existing work order?
That's correct, yeah, work order 3B. And they're also working with Black and Beach on developing the technical specifications, the procurement documents. And this is essentially, it's like an insurance policy, just enabling them to continue on with what they're doing. And assuming we eventually get into construction, then they're available to work with the contractor to answer questions and deal with change orders if there are any.
I have 2 requests.
Go, requests or questions?
Requests.
Okay.
For our council to insert exact dates of the extension.
Yeah, I have no objection after the word years, adding a parentheses and just say
2026.
June 4th, 2026.
And then the other request would be to make all work orders require council approval.
That's the way it
Yes.
is now, right?
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
All work orders always have to come before
Okay.
council.
Good.
For approval.
Perfect.
Are the rates staying the same?
Yeah,
All rates are staying the same?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk?
As amended, consensus of council.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a capital project authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving the purchase of 2 fire vehicles from Garber Chevrolet Buick GMC Inc. in an amount not to exceed $120,990, providing for waiver of competitive bidding, declaring certain fire vehicles as surplus property, authorizing the sale or disposition of surplus property, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Fire Chief? What, did Eric take the car with him and he didn't give it back?
I don't think he could take it. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Joe Fernandez, Fire Chief. The item before you tonight is for the replacement of 2 fire staff command vehicles that have exceeded the village fleet replacement policy. and they have become unreliable. The cost of maintaining them have become exorbitant. They are being purchased through the Florida Sheriff's Office Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. Do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, since you're up here for the first time under your new title, I think everybody wants to give you a hard time. So.
Oh, okay.
And Ed's not here, so we.
I saw that.
Somebody's got to do that.
Can't you just put a new cab on the old chassis?
Yes. That's a damn good idea.
I just want to ask a question, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
It's a structural question. Why do we buy these versus lease these over a long period of time that includes a maintenance agreement? In my business, we don't purchase the vehicles, we lease them. At the end of the day, we actually pay for them complete, but they include a running service agreement with the vehicle.
Yes, and there are options for that, Councilman. We did explore last year with Enterprise Leasing.
That's who we use,
A particular public safety program that they had, police, fire, and the finance department. And we really found that after the analysis, it didn't really work out from a financial standpoint. So we opted to continue this way between finance, police, and fire. But we did explore it very deeply for a few months. That's the background I have on
And
that.
if we could, council member, obviously, I was about to say, unfortunately, Benjamin's out,
I
but
know, I was
actually
gonna-
good that Benjamin's out because he just had a baby.
This would have been
They did a detailed analysis, and so maybe we could sit, aside. But Benjamin's done it and done the, cost benefit on each one. But we did do that, hoping that it would work, but no, the numbers just don't. And then part of it is we have to modify our vehicles, particularly our police vehicles, but also the fire vehicles as well.
Okay, thank you.
I would just ask, this is just a comment, that we really try to adhere to our policy. I understand that we've been playing catch-up, but going for, in terms of acquiring vehicles and things, but I really think that the cost of the repairs and the leasing, when the cars that we have, the vehicles that we have exceeded their life expectancy, is just too expensive, and it's more expensive than going ahead and getting a new vehicle. Just my comment.
Our policy's 7 years, right?
Yes.
7 years.
7 years or 100,000 miles, whichever's first, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think we get to 100,000 miles before 7 years, for the most part.
In some vehicles, yes, some vehicles, no. Yeah.
Well, here
Ones
we
that are
have
used
some.
localized, obviously, we get more miles, more years out of miles.
We budgeted $150,000 for this, or appropriated
For what?
for this purchase.
120.
No, I think we appropriated 150. No.
Actually, we appropriated 150. 120 is for the purchase of the vehicles, and then there's a little bit of cushion there, but most of the remaining amount to 150 is to put in the radios and all the other equipment that's required afterwards. And to what the manager said, that is also why sometimes the leasing programs don't work that well, because you put in $15,000 worth of equipment and then you're, so.
Got it.
Where's the trade-in value? Is it in the 120 or is it in the 150? Or
Well, we have estimates, but the actual vehicles we're talking about were beyond the replacement value, and we've been.
But in your thing, you say that it could be worth between $5,000 and $12,000.
There's an estimate there. One of them actually completely failed, and it's already been deadlined. It had been fixed multiple times, which causes us to have to move into rental vehicles as well. But one of them is completely deadlined and gone.
Okay, so to be clear, there is no resale value on one, and there might be on the other one?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's correct. And that'll go back into general fund, that money when it comes back in.
Okay, not to reduce the cost of this item.
Well, in essence, it does, yes. With money being fungible, yes, it does, and it'll be available for any future use. But I think that's also one of the things that, to reinforce what the Councilwoman mentioned on the policy, is 7 years and about 100,000 plus or minus miles is the sweet spot where you can actually get a sale value. When we do sell back cars in that area, we can get 10, 15, in some cases $20,000, which can then be used to put forward the other vehicles as well. So, but when you wait this long, as these vehicles are, I think both of them are either over or close to 200,000.
One was 200,000, yes.
There's not a whole lot of residual value on these vehicles.
And we're not buying hybrids because they're more expensive. They're not.
I think from emergency response vehicle, I just don't think it's. We tried a few with the police, and we had issues with the water and the flooding.
Okay, fine.
So I think
No,
we've made a decision that
that's good. That's enough answer.
right now diesel or gasoline is the way to go.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Clerk has an item. Mr. Attorney, we need to do something on that?
So under the clerk's item, she's bringing to your attention that we have an ordinance relating to supplemental open meeting requirements, which is effectively our meeting requirements for sunshine meetings. So when council members have sunshine meetings, we have an ordinance that governs the notice, the procedure, the location. This was put in as a result of the last charter amendments that came before the Charter Review Commission had proposed them, and it was approved by the voters. So part of this requirement is that every 2 years, the council is supposed to look at these requirements. So we're coming up on 2 years, so the clerk is bringing this forward to give the council time to give direction if we should amend it or not.
Okay. We have to do anything?
I mean, Madam Clerk?
If you all wanted, we're prepared to have a discussion if you wanted to make any changes or if you want to look at this and then at the next meeting.
I think you guys had a sunshine meeting the other day. Everything worked well.
I think that the two big improvements that were really necessary is posting electronically and not just hiding it in the little clerk's posting window that nobody visits. So posting it was necessary, and having the location specified, which is here, is everybody knows where we're going to be.
Okay. So it's working well, as intended.
It's working well, and unfortunately, we find over and over again that sometimes we need to do these things because get work done.
Jocelyn, is there anything that you think we should modify to make your life easier?
No, that's fine.
You sure? It's the time to bring it up. Okay.
Okay. Couple of scheduling issues. Everybody's got the strategy session on May 22nd.
Yes.
Which is a Thursday.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Budget workshop, June 17th. Okay. Mr. Manager, let's run real quick through, let's see, number 3. Is there anything?
Before we go there, just real quick on some other calendar items. I am working with Commissioner Regalato's office on the tour of the underline and also a follow-on workshop for Rickenbacker Causeway. Times to be determined. Right now, we're working them, but I'll make sure as soon as I get them, I'll provide them to the clerk and she can share them with the council.
Okay. We're doing a workshop on the short-term stuff also?
No, this one is we can, but the intent of this one with her and her design team is solely on.
Right, but we have said that we are going to look at the short-term things that we need to address.
Yes, we can. They haven't yet, and we need to put some pressure on them again. I'm doing every week. The Department of Transportation Public Works is, as you know, directed by Mayor Cava to put a task force together. I don't think having that meeting without that being formed and understanding the direction is really valuable at this point.
Right, but keep that high because that's something that,
Yes, no, I agree with you.
Our long-term plan is exactly that, a long-term plan.
Yes.
So.
No, I completely agree with you.
Okay.
I would ask, I think that Chris being out, he's probably more the expert, and I know Colleen can probably help on this, but I think, can we defer the streetlight update to the 10th of June? I think you'll get more with Chris being.
Am I gonna be happier? Because I haven't seen anything happening.
You'll be happy. You'll be happy. We're moving forward. Do you have a quick summary you want to do? No, she doesn't have a summary. Somehow she got on here and she was kind of nervous.
I saw the 109-page document and I was like,
Yeah, we're working with a consultant, and Chris has got some good news. He and I spoke about it about 2 weeks ago. And unfortunately, he's not here. I would ask that we do it in public. You know, obviously, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to, if you want to do a one-on-one with him, he'll be available to do that as well.
Okay. It's on two places, the building department, and Jeremy is tasked with that, and I had put it also on my discussion item, so can you take care of that?
Yes, sir. So, do we want to move to?
I think the crux of this item for the rest of you and the people at home is what are the metrics that we use to see whether our building department is running efficiently? And you know, so I started inquiring and trying to see, because I know that we have a software, I know that we track the permits, but I think that we would all like to hear that we're doing the work and that things are getting done quickly, and that our residents and those contractors that we work with are receiving the type of service that we want. So
I think as you saw when you asked the question, as much data as we do have in the system, it can be quite difficult to extract it and get good information. So one of the things we intend to do, and we've already contacted a couple other cities where we saw they had good interfaces with like basically a dashboard telling you how long an average permit takes, how much time it spends in review versus in the applicant's queue. Because that sometimes, you know, if you just have the overall length of time of a permit, it can be misleading. You know, if it took our folks 3 days to make a comment and that took the applicant 3 months to respond, the overall application time looks pretty bad, but really we had it for 3 days. So we want to make sure we're sharing the information that actually shows what our folks are doing. So we're going to set up a digital dashboard for that, and we're going to work, because right now every time we run a report, it's like hours of time to extract data, clean up the data, make sure it's accurate, and then make that report. So we're going to be working to create the system where that is more automated, and that really there's two options we're looking at right now. One where we can sort of run a report whenever we want, but there's another one where it's just live on the web page. Like, I would love to make all of that transparent and public, in fact. So we're going to work towards that. We didn't have enough time to get like a cost estimate of that work or an estimate of the time, but we've already reached out to, I believe it was Doral, that has a really good interface. And we reached out to their IT team and their building team already. And we know we have the capability within our existing software to do it. So it shouldn't be substantial cost. It'll be a little bit of time, but I'll get back to you with more information on the exact time.
Mike, you want to jump in here? You as a former contractor, what was your experience in other cities, and how would you relate that to maybe what we're doing or not doing here?
I mean, so City of Miami, for me, typically if I put a permit request in, I would have it out in 3 days.
Okay.
and that would be similar with Doral, that would be similar with Sunny Isles, Miami Beach, a little longer, maybe a week, but that would be typical, and that would be mechanical permit that we would run through, set of shop drawings, and so is that something that would be reflective here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious where you were working mostly on larger projects?
Always large projects.
Always larger projects. So almost guaranteed those were private providers
Nope,
as well?
zero private.
You never did private providers in the city of Miami?
We work with private providers all the time, but if you were going to pull a traditional permit for installation of a garbage equipment system, that would be $700,000 project on a 50-story building. It would go in and we'd have it back in 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, for most of our disciplines, we're 3 days or under. Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty standard, you know. I think we have, and again, as you know, if you submit incomplete drawings, you end up getting bounced back and forth, and then the overall permit can take.
And I would suggest, Jeremy, that our discipline was fairly straightforward, and they were used to seeing the same thing over and over and over again, so it got through pretty quickly. Just as a question, there was a house that needed to be taken down. And it seemed to take a long time to get that demo destruction permit approved. So is that something that is very unique?
It's very unusual for a demolition permit to take time. I know, and it's hard to talk about a specific case without knowing the specifics.
Well, I don't want to bring up this specific case because we all know it. We all know who we're talking about.
But I know of one case recently where they started demolition without a permit.
Okay.
Were red tagged because it wasn't permitted.
It's not cool.
I don't know if it's the same one, but they had to then come in and apply. And so the perception of, needing that additional time, I don't know if that's what
I'm not
you're
suggesting
speaking
it is
of.
or it isn't. No.
And I know of another one where there was a miscommunication about how long, when they actually applied versus when they did apply, and that being a difference of about 3 months versus 1 month.
So I guess a better question would be if you would say that how many houses are you I mean, you're primarily reviewing single-family home rebuilds, I would imagine, and then you're also doing modifications to apartments. So for residential.
That's good.
Right. So if someone comes in with a complete set of drawings that are correct.
Like a fully cooked set of drawings.
Fully cooked set of drawings, and they go to you, how long does that take to go through the system as if it's a single-family home, 4,000 square foot, single-family home, 1.5 to $2 million project? What does that take to push through?
I've never seen one get through without some comments.
Of course, they're going to definitely get pushed
so
back.
Our standard turn with a very, very good set of drawings, you can be in a month to 5 weeks, and a lot of that wait time is frankly county Durham permitting, and I have been told that we are amongst the fastest in the county for those kinds of permits. Single family homes usually do not have private providers, so in City of Miami and other places, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, they typically take longer. And I know City of Miami, I've heard some pretty high numbers. But generally speaking, the amount of time in queue, it's generally that it's taking a month because there's probably a week or two where it's on the design team side to correct drawings and get back and resubmit. Our goal is always to, every time you resubmit, it's a substantial amount of time, even just to sort of republish the drawings, restamp the drawings, everything like that. So what we try to do, because all of our reviewers are also inspectors, that's a really great, we can jump a lot of steps there, and we can often say, approved as noted, where some minor change that they still would need to pick up, or in most municipalities they would require them to make a change on the drawings, we can allow it to go through, and then because that reviewer is going out in the field with the drawing, he knows what he was talking about in the approved as noted, and then we can move things through with fewer review cycles.
And that's 100% digital?
That's 100% digital, yes. We still, per law, are required to accept paper drawings. I haven't seen one. The professionals love the digital submission.
The additional point of tracking that I brought up to you also is the issue of open permits. Well, I want to make sure that in our system that, you know, if you don't come back in, you get thrown out because I brought you that one specific example.
Yeah, we actually discovered that we had a hole in the system, that we weren't properly tracking open permits that had remained open, that hadn't been properly closed out. So we're following up on some of those. A lot of those were emergency permits that were granted. So like, for instance, if you have a water leak and it's a sort of work that would normally require a permit, you're allowed to just proceed and document as you go along. But then you're required to come back. We issue a temporary permit for that, and then you're required to come back with a full permit. So we had been missing some of those. We'd also been missing some things that were just like left open. So we're closing some of those loops now.
So Jeremy, on a typical condo, because of state ordinance, you have a time frame that you have to build, right? There's a code that says you have to build an apartment building in a certain period of time. Do we have a requirement that says this size house needs to be constructed in no longer than this time period, so that we don't have these sort of constant open projects that people are residents are complaining it's taking 6 years to build this house?
This is a real challenge, and the state code actually, as long as you keep the permit open, you're allowed to continue construction. But I would also like to, sort of as a thought exercise, play out what if we did have a time limit. So presume, developer A runs into some financial difficulty. He thinks he's going to get through it, but there's going to be a delay to the project. We set a deadline. He's forced to sell. I'm not sure, this isn't necessarily legal, or we start leaning the property and we start fining them at the property. I don't think that's, from a practical standpoint, going to lead to a faster conclusion of the construction project, because there's two options playing out there. The developer A is just delayed because now he has to pay for two things, or he abandons the project. And so currently that does happen, and then developer B comes in, purchases the site, and continues the work. Now, if we had fines, if we had something like a lien on the property, now developer B would have to clear those fines, clear those liens, and then begin construction. So I don't think it gets us where we want to be. The challenge as well is we're dealing with state laws as well regarding the maintenance of open permits. I wish I had a better answer.
No, I'm just looking to help residents who feel like that the houses are just continuing to be sort of in temporary construction forever.
No, and if I've talked to some of these people, they feel like they're under siege, and they're on their third contractor that they're dealing with, and all I can tell you is we try and do our best to make sure the sites are maintained well.
I have some ideas. I'll come and talk to you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go to Mayor and Council discussion. Your item number 2, Mr. Bracken, want to take it?
Okay, is this about the bicycle situation?
Yeah.
Yes, public safety issue, bike lane at Crandon Boulevard and Harbor Drive.
Yep. So the residents in the back, there's pictures, I believe, that were sent today. This is the truck. This is basically the bike lane. I know the bike lane has currently got some striping that allows the car to go across that bike lane into the turning lane, and then turn onto right in front of the old Oasis, right? So Harbor Drive, excuse me. I was, driving around the Venetian Causeway a lot over the last couple of weeks, and they are inserting these, for lack of a better term, these devices right here, these black devices. Okay, now These are popular already in the county, so you see these around already, so they wouldn't need to be, get a special approval, I don't believe. The reason why I like these versus, is because they really, when you hit one of these with your car, you know that you hit it, okay? And I think we have a significant problem with the bikes engaging with the cars that are crossing, especially because they're crossing in an inappropriate place. Okay, so there's only one place they're supposed to cross, and right now they're crossing in all the areas where they're not crossing.
Who's crossing, the
The
cars or
the cars are crossing, right?
So they're crossing in an area.
Yes, you're riding your bike, excuse me, you're riding your bike down, okay, and all of a sudden, somebody just right in front of you, okay? Now, it's just a matter of when somebody gets hurt, it's not if somebody gets hurt, it's when, okay? So, and when we put this turn lane in, we created this situation, okay? So I'm just trying to see if there's a way to address this. Plastic poles might be an option. These are less offensive to look at than the plastic poles. And I know that traffic is a big issue, but we also have a responsibility to protect these people on their bikes. Now, granted, if a car pulls in front of you, you should definitely just be able to stop your bike because you shouldn't be going that fast. But this is a point of concern, and I think it's, especially if David continues to look at putting his property there, we're gonna have another problem with this, okay? So we need to think about how we're gonna solve this problem.
When the county put the bike lane, the green lane in Crandon, at the very beginning, there were these vibratory installations that
There were the
also were
lights,
reflectors.
yeah, they're all bad.
So is that, they were all pulled out because the lights went bad?
Yeah.
I mean, while they were functioning, they were.
They were great,
worked.
yeah.
And the reflector quality, whether it's a reflector that might pick up headlights or an actual light, was a good idea.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
So something like that helps. Do these have reflectors?
These do, so these guys do have reflectors on.
So are we, just for my clarification, are we thinking about just doing it in one specific location where there is potential conflict?
just-
Or doing it throughout, like they're doing it in the Venetian, which is really all along?
They do it on the Venetian because there's cars right there, so this is the sort of the barrier, but.
Right.
What I'm suggesting is we put a
Yeah.
series of these in
Before
before they arrive at the cross, and then we put them after the cross as well, so that they're not crossing in front.
A question, and it's just more of a, just seeing, can we take this all the way through and just do this for the entire bike lane and work with the county? Would this help?
So my experience, bicycle riders don't particularly like them.
No, they don't.
And
I don't like to hit
and what
one
they,
either.
right, and then they opt to, because they're dangerous for them, and then they opt to actually use the car lane so that they don't have to deal with them.
And that's.
So we might have some unintentional
I'm sorry.
consequences.
No.
Is that legal for them to ride on the?
Street?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yes, they are allowed to drive.
They can use the street.
They're a vehicle, they have the full rights to drive down the road as long as they're driving appropriately.
I think the unintended consequences of using them too much is that they will start opting for just using the bike, the vehicle lane, and not the bike lane.
Right. That's a good
But I do
point.
see some value in just prior to the section that is demarked
And then-
for crossing by dotted lines or broken lines.
Yeah, and then after.
And then after to just
Before the intersection.
cause the vehicle to start to use the correct area. I don't know.
Just a
You're
counter-
a cyclist, Jeremy, maybe you could have some ideas.
Well, look, I think we can talk to the county, because your examples are on county roads. I know that product, it's called Zikla, it's made in Spain. And they got a great grant to have the product at Miami-Dade County.
But they're all over the Venetian.
But
They're all over the Venetian. I think you're also correct, you wouldn't want them everywhere, but I know that I'm through that intersection nearly every morning, and it's often problematic where you're playing Frogger with the turning lanes. So I'm happy to reach out to the county planning staff and DTBW and talk to them about, the possibility, because I think in that case, you wouldn't need many.
No.
You've just got a
Maybe a
couple
dozen.
spots, they start to drift early, and yeah, as you said, they go late and unpredictably.
Okay, but
So-
if we look at the purpose of that original right turn was to eliminate, and I'm only looking at it right now from a traffic operation with all
Sure.
respect to bikers. But initially, we looked at that lane as a reduction in the congestion that we were having.
It did wonders.
And it worked really
did
well.
Incredibly well.
For that
Yeah,
intention.
we're not talking
And
about
it works
limiting
for-
it.
No, I know we're not talking about that, but I'm saying with the conflict with the bicyclist, is that really, are we really achieving, and I'm not, the bicyclist, just putting that aside for a second, just trying to understand, are we achieving that? Are we achieving the level of service with that right turn lane by itself?
I think so.
Well,
Is it getting, now the next question, is it getting further complicated with weaving with bicyclists and other modes of transportation?
Fernando, if you go out on the road, you'll see that the road is actually specifically etched with this design intention.
where you can
Right.
merge.
Where you merge.
And what happens is, in this picture.
No, I see that.
People are
I see
merging,
that. I see that.
disregarding where to merge and merging as far back as maybe.
I'd see that, but we may have inadvertently caused a conflict that is
No,
not
that's what we're
really
saying.
helping our turning operations.
Yeah, I don't think this would interfere, because if we're talking about really, they're not able to advance when they start drifting in the bike lane because it's not wide enough.
Correct.
They're still stuck there. They're just stuck and blocking the bike lane. So if we could prevent that, we wouldn't be slowing down the right turn
Okay,
movement.
let's,
Doesn't feel like.
I think
Yeah, I think we got the
point's been
picture
made.
though.
Let's
Yeah,
go
the
and work
pur-
on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the purpose of this was just to bring it up.
Yeah.
If you guys could look at it, come up with some designs. I know the resident in the back would appreciate this, and I also would appreciate this as well. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks.
You want to take the next one, Mike?
High water emergency vehicles.
Yeah, this really was just for the chief to kind of just give me some input. We're going to have a flooding situation. We know that because we've got a stormwater problem. So I would just want to understand how many vehicles we have, how in the event that we need a service, someone is stuck in their house or stuck in an apartment building, how many vehicles do we have, how much water can we attend with, and that was really the question.
Okay, currently, we just reviewed our vehicle list for capital purposes. With regard to the fire apparatus, the rescue trucks are about at a 14-inch level of being able to water forward or be able to handle elevated water. The fire trucks are a little higher, but as a system or as a village, we obviously, police has done a lot with their pickup truck additions and 4x4 that have, resistive undercarriages and stuff, which are easier to use to deal with water. So I think that looking at it as a systems approach or a village approach, we need to have a mix of vehicles, some that can handle more high water as we do replacements and things like that. But specifically to fire, about 14 inches are where our rescue trucks are limited.
So in other words, if there's more than 14 inches of water on the road, we're not mobilizing.
Yeah, it would damage the truck, and it's not only the height of the door, but it's also where the air intake and the exhaust is. Those two will paralyze the vehicle. So it's a combination of factors.
So if we had a 911 situation and we're flooded 2 feet on the street because of, I don't know, the high tide, king tide, water bomb, what do we tell the people?
So currently, from what I've learned and participated in for the last year, we would have to prepare for that and then use a mix of the vehicles that we currently have in some sort of adaptive response. And that's where I'm saying that planning and purchasing a mix of vehicles that have those capabilities allow you to deal with those issues in a more immediate fashion rather than having to wait and having people isolated. And that's been my experience when I've had to respond to other places after large incidents. Many municipal and county governments have gone to buying multi-use trucks, medium duty, for example, like a 450 or 550 type chassis with a stake body, and then you can use that combination police, fire, public works, and you could go in 20, 24 inches of water and pick up kids at the school or residents trapped in a high-rise or things like that. So those are options that we can look at.
Could you come back with some numbers for something like that for the next meeting? Maybe just a budget for what a vehicle like that would cost?
I could work with the manager, and we've discussed it briefly, but yes, I could.
Thank you. That answers the question. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Nancy.
In the interest of time, I don't know if we're going to run out of time. Shall I go
Advisory
down?
board assignments?
I'm just going to say, could I go down to number 8 first? In case
Sure.
we run out of time, I'd rather take that one first.
Okay.
The Chabad temple is the only religious institution that we have on the island that is not zoned institutional. My understanding, it's there on a variance that was issued in 2006, so 19 years ago. So I would like to see if we could agree to have staff or our council prepare whatever's necessary to change the zoning for that property to institutional. The rabbi is supportive of this request, and I think Jeremy has some information on that.
Yeah, so we've actually been doing quite a bit of research now on, because it's not strictly under a variance, it's under a property-specific development order. Chad has pretty good history on it, but I'd actually, as a preliminary step, like to come back with maybe a report on pros and cons, or at least review it with the rabbi and make sure this is the direction we really want to go in. I think we probably will, but it's a little bit more complicated than once we dug a little deeper. So,
Okay, will you keep me in that loop?
Yes.
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that would be great, and if you had a good symbol in front, that would work very well.
But are you thinking that, maybe it's premature to say, but is this not simply a zoning change?
it could be. It would be simply a zoning change. It could be a comprehensive plan change as well, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, because like small religious institutions are allowed in the single family land use category within the comprehensive plan.
It was, I don't remember how this featured, but there was a RLUIPA angle to this somehow.
Yeah, there was.
Whether that helps, it could help.
Yeah.
The RLUIPA issue is what led to I don't know if it was a special exception or the development order that Jeremy was referring to, where the relief was granted and to allow for the temple at this location.
I think that it didn't rest on RLUIPA though. RLUIPA was part of the analysis, but not part of the predicate for the action, I think.
I mean, I think that it definitely was part of the discussion. Whether they invoked it, another story, I don't recall, but regardless, that's where we ended up to allow for an exception for this facility to be located in this location.
Okay.
So.
But it's an appropriate location. It's compatible. It's across the street from two other religious institutions. Like it's a good candidate for a rezoning.
Yep. And it's got a succus.
Yeah. No, we just I just want, rather than diving right in with a directive, I think we should just review.
Yep.
Okay, so could we have that?
Very soon.
Okay.
We're
that's
ready.
great.
We're
Thank
ready
you.
to go.
Thank you.
Oh, and your other one, Nancy?
No, and my other one is just, it seems to me that some of these advisory boards meet and kind of decide what they want to do, and the purpose of the advisory boards is to advise council and help us in our endeavors, and it would be helpful all around if we, I guess at the beginning of each year and throughout the year as changes become necessary, give some scopes of work and for them to so that they can come back and help us do what we're doing.
Yeah, on that score, I think that I started the practice to having them come and report at the end of the year. And so I think that having the liaison more and more involved, I think that would certainly help and make it so that whatever advice that, first, yeah, you're right. I mean, if we have them study something, that's probably the purpose of a lot of these committees, and then having them come back and give us, their feedback. I think that's what we're looking for, right?
One of the things the reasons this came to my attention was because on the EAB, I cast no aspersions. This is just information that I've learned along the way. When the masked thing came up, I learned that at one point, there was a report that was being given to the EAB, I think 4 or 5 times a year, from MAST saying what the numbers were. So we knew as it changed all throughout the year whether our requirements were being met. And somehow that fell through the wayside. And so if that was like a standing order, and I'm not singling out that just happens to be one example that I know of or have heard of. But there are other advisory boards that I've sat in on, and sometimes it seems like they're could be more effectively helping us.
Okay. Good point.
I have 2 thoughts. So partially on the advisory boards, in my mind, their scope is to advise the council, certainly, probably gain some type of direction on what we might be considering without them having a first thought, but also to bring to our attention kind of our blind sides.
Absolutely.
We couldn't possibly give direction because we're focused on many other things.
Right.
And so I do think that the participation of the liaison is very important. And to bring up the situation you just mentioned, those reports in their time were birthed out of a immediate necessity that was happening at the time, which was this problem we had with waitlisting that was being caused predominantly because we found that there were people falsifying residency, trying to find ways to gain access to a school that was very highly coveted. And so that fell from the wayside. It was a perfect storm. We had COVID, the resource moved on. There was a change in administration, so there wasn't a good handoff between the people that were giving that report, and then there was no issue any longer. And so it was brought back. And so I think that bringing it back has been a direct, it's been a direct issue now being looked at because the liaison, in this case myself, is bringing it back there. But the scope, I don't think that the direction from the council should be go work on these things. It should be a combination where the board says, hey, we've been working on these ideas and we'd like to bring it to you, council, because you set us to do that.
I don't say it by way of limitation.
Right. No, I understand. So there's 2 parts there, but I do think that formalizing that, it should really be kind of a interaction between the liaison and that board. I don't know that there's a way I can't think of a way to formalize the scope of an advisory board across all advisory boards, if you know what I mean.
No, it would be unique to each advisory board. We
Right.
would-
So who do you think would create that scope then?
We would.
Who's we? The council?
Well, the creating ordinances define the purpose.
Correct. And in the case of the Educational Advisory Board, you have a compact
Yes.
that very well defines it. It's a bit broad. And so my fear with the compact is it's so broad that you can have this paralysis by analysis and nothing gets done.
Oscar, why not ask them to do a monthly report, like in a normal,
Yeah,
like a normal
I love that.
business?
Yeah,
Like a
I think the
normal
report is good. And actually, we've installed that, but it just hasn't happened consistently.
It's really an annual.
Yeah.
It's
but-
not.
Monthly is too frequent.
Maybe it could
So
be quarterly.
Quarterly report, but they don't have to physically report. They just they turn in the paperwork to the
And
council.
every
for
one of
review.
these groups has a departmental liaison as well. Maybe that's where this could Good fall.
If I could add to what I want to add to what the councilwoman is saying there, and I think it's important. I think a lot of the committees do work on topics which are important, but I think they come up against some obstacles, and part of that is resources, right? And resources that we can provide them. And so, I think in some cases having those report backs to the council, so to see, we're trying to do this, but we can't because of manpower, money, whatever it might be, access. I think it would be valuable for all of us, because I don't frequently get that either. And I think if you all got it, I got it, maybe we could better resource these boards so they could achieve what we want them to achieve.
So I guess my understanding from the scope of what the liaison should be doing is participating and bringing that back to council. So
Yeah, but you,
if I'm participating as a liaison for the AB and the AB has an ask, then the ask could come through me to my colleagues without the necessity of this extra step, which I think could, I don't know. I mean, that's what I see the job of the liaison to do.
So I'm on the
But you-
liaison
but it
for
has
the
that-
sustain-
yeah.
I'm the liaison for the Sustainability Committee, right?
Uh-huh.
So they were working on something concerning the potential to changing the recycling.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're getting ready to put the bid out for the garbage services, and those two things were not aligned on timing. Okay, so
I think the same thing happened with the single-use plastic.
right. So they weren't aware of this issue. Okay, and I think if they would be doing a more look, Derek does a great job. I mean, I'm not indicating that, but there's like a timing issue that wasn't there. So if they were doing a monthly report or
But we're talking quarterly, and so the timing could be an issue in that sense too. It's
yeah,
not
but
enough.
so how do you? So I mean,
Well, we get together monthly,
yeah, we get together monthly, and
so do the boards.
we talk. So I'm just workshopping this for a second. But if we talk to these guys, we bring this stuff back. But I think once a year is too short. Maybe it's every 6 months. Just as a thought.
Or if the nature of the work has a certain time quality that's relevant, it's as events warrant.
As we said, everyone's slightly unique, and they all have
I mean, the
different.
boards meet once a month. Yes,
I
and we
just
meet
wanna-
once a month.
I just want to say that we had a report by the Estefania Diaz-Balart in the beginning of the year. And she taught, that's EAB, right?
Yes.
Okay. And she said, she talked about focusing on disability kind of programs in the
Correct.
school.
Yes.
She's out there doing her thing, right? And then we have the disability board, and they don't know what each other's doing, and we don't.
But actually, the EAB has attended the Unique Abilities meeting, and the Unique Abilities meeting has attended the EAB to get aligned.
That is.
And it only took 2 months to
My
do that.
understanding that, I mean, we don't have to argue about it.
No, I'm not.
I think that's a more recent development, because I remember having conversations with people about that. And I'm not saying we should limit what any board does, but I do think we need help. And I think that if we could reach out with some scopes of work that we need advisement on, it would help us.
I agree.
Okay. Making the liaisons more aware of that interconnectedness, I think that's half the battle right there. So, okay, good point. Let's talk about our swale policy. I'm asking the council for a workshop on this situation. I think this has been percolating for a while. People are doing different things on the right of way, and I don't think we've addressed it fully. It's something that can be somewhat painful because people have done things and now you're going to have to ask them to move it back. So I want to have a quick discussion about this and then set up a potential workshop in the future so that we can deal with it. It'll be the sole subject of that situation. what are your initial thoughts?
Can I, sorry.
Oh, go.
Quick thing from past experience, having done soil policies like this, usually what helps out is to prioritize them into, say a little sapling or whatever, maybe a small tree to a physical monument. You'd be surprised how people are attached to what's on the soil. I had a lady in Miami Beach one time who buried a dog in there, her dog, and it was a little tree. It was you would remove it anytime, but obviously it has such a strong sentiment for the residents. So you have to be very careful with that. It's scary at times, but I say what has helped in the past is to prioritize them into, we call them encroachments, or you want to call it soil, that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's people's signature of their property in the right of way, for the most part.
Yeah, one of the things that we'd want to see is have take a look at what our ordinance says, and then take a look at some other ordinances that we might think that are good to look at. And as Michael always says, let's have lots of pictures of what is out there. Okay, let's have our staff take some time, go out there, take pictures of potential encroachments or problem areas, so that we have stuff to look at and decide. We have this question is it all right for cars to be on the roadway only or in the swale? And everybody has different opinions about that. So as a matter of fact, someone with a very opinion is here. A former Mayor Festa, you want to address us for just a couple of?
Or finish your discussion?
No, go ahead now. Go ahead now.
I think I know where you're going. John Festa, 695 Harbor Lane. In March, I came before you with three concerns: the traffic calming. I've talked to the Public Works through the manager, and that's going to be taken care of. I was interested in the Big Dig. I've been attending your meetings, and the swales. And the thing that bothers me most about the swales is not what you're talking about tonight, which is there's two parts to the swale issue. One of them is the current violations in the swale of posts, metal posts, wooden posts, that prohibit anybody from parking in front of a person's home. Right. Clear violation. I doubt any council member would want to change the code to allow that. That's what I'd like you to do now. Have your building and zoning department, your public works, the police department that drive around the key, identify the blocks, talk to the village attorney as to how they can be removed. Can the village go out and remove them, or you have to notify the owners, but they're violations? You're not going to change the code for that. The other thing, yes, you should have a workshop or maybe incorporate in your ZORC committee a review of the current code for the clear zone, which has some violations, not as many as these posts, but some things that some may be hard to address, but others are probably easy. And one of the things that's probably easy is the areas and swales that mud up because of water in there. But we can't have a village that has different rock in front of that house or this house where you can't grow grass, and there's different types of material. If an easy solution is high quality synthetic grass if you have a puddling area or you can't grow grass, totally regulated by the village. So I would ask you to act now on the immediate violations, get rid of them, and then with your ZORC, look at the code and come back in a reasonable time to evaluate everything else. So that's my input. I'm not going to be here. I have advertising as to why I'm not going to be here. I'll be gone for a while. So I hope this is done.
Yeah. One of the things that makes it tricky, and I think the Chad, what our ordinance says might be a little bit different than what's out there, right?
Well, we have a very unique ordinance that was put into place many years ago to deal with residents placing certain things in the right of way. And I think that would have to be evaluated. But yes, I think what you're saying is correct also. So I think that your direction before, Mayor, is correct. We should have an evaluation of our existing ordinance, bring examples. As far as direction to the manager, I leave that to you guys on what you want to do currently. But
In some not too few cases, my impression is that the reason that the obstacles were installed years ago was because of parking conditions started to degrade the swales.
Well, I mean, I know exactly what John's talking about because they're all over the place. And there's the huge one down the street from my house. But what ends up happening is that you go and you sod your front yard, okay? Do a really nice job, spend the whole weekend doing it, and then somebody takes a contractor truck and just drives it right up on your sod and just rips it all to shreds, and then they drive off, and you have no idea who did it. So it's this constant battle. So I know I can understand intellectually why people put this up, because to be frank, I'm one of those guys who put the rocks in their front yard because I got tired of having people and I went to the village and actually got approval for it. Now, I think they're river pebbles.
In the swale or
yeah, they're in the swale.
your property?
They're on the whole front of my house swale. I went to the village, actually sat down with the head of public works at the time and architects and got approval. And you might even have been the mayor at that time. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't remember.
But can somebody park there or not?
Yeah, you just drive right up on the rocks and it's fine. But I do understand the ones that are blocking the road, blocking the swell altogether. But what do you do when you have this? I mean, John, you talked about the fact you put the non-permanent artificial turf. I personally think that's just super ugly, but that's an opinion. But
Only in areas that have significant problems.
yeah, well, anyway, I think it's.
Well, that's
So there's a conversation there, but
You have planted hedges all the way
no,
out.
for sure.
Or coral rocks all the way out that are, I think those are dangerous.
Let's do what you suggest.
And by the same token, if you live, like, for example, near the farmer's market, holy cow, you might be singing a different tune and you're saying, hey, I got tons of people from 9 to 1 on Saturday morning parking on top of my grass. So, it's a lot to look at because this is quite complicated.
If you're living there, you're singing Rock in the Casbah.
Okay, a couple more things. I am appointing to the ZORC Buzz Vernon, Brett Moss, Alejandro Perez Duque, Juan Subillaga, and Annabelle Stevens. There's no issue with those. We're consensus of council.
Consensus.
Okay.
Good.
One of the things that I started talking with staff about is this item that I have here on keeping track of our flooded houses, and I'm told that we don't really know. Okay. There is a program with FEMA that if you have repetitive losses, then that information becomes available. But clearly, I think when I asked, there was like nine houses on that list, and we know that we have a far bigger flooding problem than that. That maybe things aren't being reported. I've checked with the realtors, and as of last year, they have the obligation to report if they know that a house has had flooding before. But to go along with the work that we've been doing, I think this is crucial that we understand: is it 50 houses? Is it 100 houses? What is it? 500? And so I wanted to bring it up to have a discussion and see how we can get staff to give us more information in that area. You want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what you're talking about, that we have, I don't know if the number is exactly 9. I think it is, though, that we have currently have 9 repetitive loss properties. So the challenge for us is that's a self-reporting issue, right? The only things that appear are when somebody files an insurance claim. And people are often reluctant to file an insurance claim unless there's massive damage. So particularly if they know they're at risk of being declared a repetitive loss property. So it's sort of built into the metric a bit. We don't necessarily, we only know if there's an insurance claim.
What about from our work with AECOM? In the modeling, do we have?
We can, obviously there are those that have been flooded, and as Jeremy said, it's difficult to get that information. But there's also, we can identify those that are very vulnerable as well. Right. And we can identify the definition of vulnerability, based on our, current flooding and the elevation of the house, and we can begin to maybe create buckets of highly vulnerable, less vulnerable, and create a map that shows that.
Good idea.
Fernando, when you worked at Miami Beach, did you have some kind
No,
of?
we didn't do it, but back then, no, I was not, no. Not to the degree, I think that's a great idea what you're proposing, Mayor. I think it's important that we begin tracking and begin understanding, physical complaints, actual complaints that people make, that take that initiative, as well as through the model, be able to quantify vulnerability throughout. Don't we have a vulnerability assessment conducted?
We could put this together relatively quickly.
Right.
Yeah, based on previous
The
work.
assessment should be able to.
Yeah, within a day, we could have a map. So we have this information. The harder one is the actuals. We can do the best we can to go after them. But my guess is this vulnerability map is going to give you an indication of either those that have been or those that are going to be.
And it's good to know some approximate number of who we think has flooded, and so that's really important for us to be able to start tracking that. And I think the public would be useful if we had that information and somebody could go onto our website and say, well, that house is flooded, or it hasn't flooded, or we don't know. That could be another answer.
This might be an imperfect device, but you could possibly interpolate from people that pull building permits.
Yes.
I missed what he said. Sorry, Councilman.
When we do building permits, the inspector that goes out could probably ascertain whether the house, where the line is.
So I am. We need to look into this too, because there might be disclosure issues, and I'm not familiar with it, but what I'm hearing is that even with the repetitive loss or just single issue properties, FEMA doesn't necessarily make that public. They don't expose addresses. So I'm not saying we can't do more. I'm just want to.
We need to do more.
Yeah, but we might be governed by federal and other laws.
Yeah, there may be some private property rights on this too. So let us look at it.
We just have to do the work.
We can figure out what could leak and what could not.
Yeah, and some of these may not be reported because an investor owns it and they just go ahead and fix it and they don't file a claim. But again, we need to identify as close as possible what that problem area is. Is it, again, 50 houses? Is it 200? Is it 500? What that potential number is, and hopefully start keeping some kind of track about it. Okay.
Yeah, so let us identify what we know, and I think we do know some, and then I think also we'll create this map of create red, yellow, and green to give you kind of an indication of the vulnerability.
And Joe, I don't think it's just single family either. So it's some of the smaller parking lots on Galen, for example.
Multifamily.
This low-lying multifamily houses, apartments they're flooding.
That's a good point.
And we've got all the LiDAR data on that, so we can identify the elevation and potential flooding.
Anybody else have? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to, we missed a couple things on the manager's report. I can run through them real quickly that I think are
Yeah,
important.
quickly, sure.
And I hope you all had a chance to read it. I do want to talk a little bit about the solid waste and recycling survey results. Two things that we found from it I think are important is what do we want to recycle, and whether that's total all recycling or just narrow it into maybe just the 4 or 5 top items. We continue to do some research on that with the support from the SAB, and then also the decision about curbside versus side yard. Numbers sound like it is preferably to be curbside, particularly since we put a potential cost against it. So we're going to put these out for bid with different options. Come back with curbside cost, side yard cost, full recycling, targeted recycling. So we're gonna do more of an option based RFP to see what they come back with on.
Did you say that the SABs had a shot at looking at it?
They're working with us on identifying the items that we believe are the most recyclable, but I think we've made that decision. We know there are about 4. The problem is, does the system in South Florida work that way? We can pick and choose what they are, and I think we know what they are, but do they just all end up in the same place? And I think that's the research we need to do, and I think that's where it makes it big, for lack of a better, big solid waste really makes that decision whether we want it or not.
Steve, one of the things too that we have been challenged with is tracking, right? So the vendors are supposed to be reporting very clearly what's being recycled, how much is being recycled, the volumes, and we're not asking for the reports or the reports are not getting to us or whatever. That disjunct has occurred.
We don't require that in our current contract. Now we can in future contracts.
Actually, I think there is some section in that. I believe, and it was pointed out in the SAB meeting, there is some sections for reporting. But anyway,
But I think that we probably need to put that language. But again, as you know, it's complex.
Yeah.
You dump it in one facility, and even the vendor believes he's recycling it, but that facility may choose to putting it somewhere else.
And I think the biggest challenge that we have is perception too, because most people don't realize that the trucks are being run on multiple routes. So the same vehicle that is picking up garbage will also be used to pick up recycling because it's all single source. So they'll just come take the recycling bin, dump it in the same vehicle, and people think it's all going to the garbage dump, which is not. It's just the truck is being used for a different route.
Right. And that's the
But also goes to sorting facility.
Yeah, that's when we have the best of intentions.
Right.
Does the system around us actually support those best of intentions?
Yeah.
And so, are we causing a lot of cost and
But
difficulty?
even from my visit to the sorting facility, they were very clear that the only 2 cash generative recycling opportunities were with cardboard and aluminum.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
There's cardboard, aluminum, steel, and some types of plastics.
Yeah,
but
but it's guys, it's not really so much the economic value; it's extending the life of the landfill. So
the economic value helps ensure that it actually gets diverted from the landfill because it has value. So aluminum has a commodity rate of $1,500 per ton, whereas glass is like negative $20.
So
for sure.
My intent was not to go into this conversation.
Yeah,
we
sorry.
got to be careful of
You can do
a
this.
15,000 person village having an impact on a huge South Florida market, and so again, we got to be careful about it. And good intentions overriding a system which may not be controllable. Other items on here, there is, and if you please look at it, an update on our stormwater system maintenance and repair, and it gives you an indication of where we are, a good map in there of what we've done, and a few items that we still need to do before hurricane season. Jeremy gave you a good update on the metrics. One of the things we talked about, and I'll talk more about them, is making sure they're time-based, and I think we had a long conversation about that. I hope you have an opportunity to also read the community programs and events. We had an amazing year this year. It was very fabulous, and I want to thank Julie Cartrude for what she's done under Todd's leadership. We are going to have a celebratory event on May 29th, and once we get that set up, we'll invite everyone out. Also, to let you know, we are in the process of receiving letters of interest now, which will feed into our budget. So as we go through, we're already looking at next year. So, coming off the success of this year. And then lastly, I hope you all had a chance to go through our website. I think it was a very good launch. I want to thank Jessica for that. We still have a while to go, but it definitely is
Improved.
customer focused, much more easily navigable. We've already gotten some good feedback, but again, we're open for any input to make it even better.
All right, anything for the good of the order? If not, a motion to adjourn is in order. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.